story that has to do with something I realized while I was gone. Now, Connor, how old are you?
I'm 21 years of age.
Connor is 21 years old. I knew he was really, really young. That was the point.
Thanks.
Connor, have you ever seen the movie Major League?
Of course. It's one of my favorites.
Okay. So most people your age, I'm going to venture to guess, probably have not seen that movie. One thing I absolutely hate is when the radio guy gets on there in sports radio and says, it's kind of like the movie, when, again, most people haven't seen whatever movie it is that you are referencing. In this case, Connor has seen the movie Major League. So while I was on vacation, we stayed at basically a vacation home and not a hotel. So it wasn't hotel TV channels or anything like that. It was regular television. And Connor, at 21 years old, bless your heart, probably doesn't remember what these days were like, but there used to be, back in the day, a moment where you would flip through the channels. And the cable channels used to show movies. And those movies would have commercials. This was pre-streaming service. Connor, do you remember those days?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, that's good. So the movie Major League was on. And again, I'm not going to take for granted that people have seen the movie Major League, although Connor has seen the movie Major League. And Lindsay had never seen the movie Major League. Why would she? She doesn't really like sports. She's not from America. Why would she? And if you haven't seen the movie Major League, it is an all-time classic. It is obviously a baseball movie. It's about the old Cleveland Indians with the old throwback uniforms, but it was a roster of players that were assembled to lose. A bunch of players that nobody had ever heard of and nobody gave a chance to win. And it was one of those stories. It was very funny, but everybody bands together and they find a way. And I'm sitting there watching Major League, which I haven't watched in full in 15 years, at least. And I'm seeing all these top 10 lists that are coming out, where ESPN is talking to league executives and scouts and personnel people, and they're compiling the top 10 running backs and the top 10 edge rushers and the top 10 defensive tackles and the top 10 safeties and the top 10 tight ends and the top 10, and they do it this time every year. And there are almost no Titans on it. And it hit me. The 2025 Titans are those Cleveland Indians from the movie Major League. A ragtag group of nobodies. The only guys that are on the team that are paid any money are overpaid, underperforming. Just like Jeffrey Simmons, who's more worried about his car and his own free time than he is his lack of sacks. And the Titans are a team just like that fictitious Cleveland Indians team with Willie Mays Hayes on it that is set up to fail. I wonder if Titan fans, it's almost like the week of not talking about the Titans has provided clarity for me just about how bad this upcoming season might be. And before you say, oh, Jared, you are just a hater, I want you to know I'm not the one who made up a list of head coaches that are on the hot seat and then had to write another article following up on the coaches on the hot seat saying, whoops, I forgot about Brian Callahan. That wasn't me. That was Mike Florio at Pro Football Talk. I'm not the one who put up a ranking of quarterbacks all by these separate tiers of 32 and did not include Cam Ward. That was pardon my take. I'm not the one putting together the list of top 10 players at each position and talking to league executives, scouts, coaches, and players about it. That's Jeremy Fowler, ESPN. And I do believe that the Tennessee Titans know this. I think the Titans know they're going to be awful in 2025. And I think the Titans, and I'm talking about ownership and upper management, I think they're ultimately going to be okay with it. They won't come out and say that they're going to be bad because team morale and they're trying to sell tickets. But I think they know. I think they're trying to build a team for 2027 when they open a new stadium. But I just don't know if you can really do that in the NFL. Plan out years ahead and say, we're building a team for 3 years from now. I don't think you can really do that. They do that in baseball. They do that in hockey. And sometimes they do that in baseball and hockey and it doesn't work. But they do that in baseball. They do that in hockey. I don't think you can do that in the NFL. The Miami Dolphins are the last team that completely tore it down and tanked to try to build up a winner. And then they spent big because they were trying to be winners. And now it looks like the Miami Dolphins are back to tanking. The other thing, I think that when you do try to build up a team, I believe you build it around a veteran quarterback and then go get the young quarterback the way that Buffalo, Kansas City, and Baltimore did it. But while I was gone, that happened to be the one consistent, which was, man, every time I pulled up Twitter on the For You tab, it was something about, oh, we forgot to include the Titans, silly us. Coaches on the hot seat, Mike McDaniel, number 1, this guy, number 2, this guy, number 3. Forget about 3-win Brian Callahan. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot Brian Callahan. Whoops, that's my bad. That's my bad. Brian Callahan. Sorry, forgot about him, that he sucks. Top 10 lists. Running back. Nope, don't see Tony Pollard on there. Tight end. I don't even think people inside the league know who the Titans tight end is. The big Titan stories, the big needle moving things that, again, ended up on my algorithm For You tabs were all negative stuff. Jim Wyatt's worried about Tavandre Sweat's weight. Really? That one popped up on Titans Stationery. People angry at the Pardon My Take guys for completely forgetting about Cam Ward. Because right now, to everybody, the Titans are truly the most irrelevant team in the entire NFL. And I remember as a kid, even when the Titans were bad. Now, I never remember a year where they went into it saying like, oh yeah, this team's awful. There's no hope. And I don't know what to say. I don't ever remember a year like that as a kid. Maybe I was more optimistic. Maybe the team just happened to be better in most of those years. I mean, again, I know Cam Ward was the number 1 overall pick, but Cam Ward didn't even make it to the ACC championship game. When I was a kid, the Titans drafted Vince Young, who had just single-handedly won the national title. So there was always, I guess, some reason for hope. But even when the Titans weren't supposed to be good, I used to always have this, well, they'll show them. They'll show them. And for the most part, they kind of did oftentimes. But even in the years they didn't, I never thought, oh man, this is going to be awful. This time last year, when I had just gotten back from vacation, I went to the Bahamas. I got an infection in my leg. I went to the hospital because it was 9 p.m. on a Sunday. And they were like, I should probably get that just looked at. So my dad and I went, and the doctor was a listener of the show. And my dad and I were talking. My dad was like, you really think the Titans are going to be that bad? I said, yeah, I think they're going to be that bad. I said, I know that a lot of people want to believe otherwise, but you know the right tackle story. And I know what Floyd meant when he said it. I was the one he said it to. People are trying to say, oh, no, you don't understand, Jared. Bill Callahan, he'll fix it. But I know what he meant by it. And we all saw in real time last season how that played out. Last year, I said this team's going to be bad. And I think people thought to themselves, well, they're not going to be that bad. You're just a hater. Now I even think there are some Titan fans that are looking at this team saying, man, this team's going to be awful. And again, I can't find a single positive YouTube video. I can't, but it's not like made by somebody who's clearly a bobo. You know, somebody just banging the drum for the team. I can't find anybody. I find more people who forget about the Titans than people who believe in the Titans. And that's not a good spot to be in the middle of July. Training camp hasn't even opened. And here I am sitting there thinking, this team is going to be awful. But that was pretty much every story that, again, popped up on the Design for Me algorithms while I was gone was about, oh, the Titans got left off that list. Or another ESPN top 10 where league executives ranked Derrick Henry the second best running back a year after ranking him 9th. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you know when they say it's going to have to get worse before it gets better? I'm not sure it could get worse after last year with Will Levis at quarterback, but all signs are pointing to a repeat of last season this season. But maybe like when I was a kid back in the day, I used to think they'll show them. Well, maybe we can cling to that. They'll show them. 615-737-1025 is the phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. And one texter's already said our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Enough sunshine pumping. You're getting us too excited for the season. I know. So I brought up these ESPN top 10 lists. And these are not ESPN's lists as much as they are lists compiled by ESPN. And the representation of the Titans is depressing. But you already knew that. But there was a one that came out today that made me put my head in my hands. And just because I think the Titans are going to be awful does not mean that I think that that I want the Titans to be awful. But there's a one thing today that absolutely killed me when I saw it. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.
With the sixth pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the New York Giants select Malik Neighbors.
Yes, sir.
Wide receiver, LSU.
Yep.
Okay, Titans are on the clock now.
Now, one of
me
these
just say
guys,
this.
Fashanu, Bowers,
Yep.
and Turner are all left.
Okay, so here's what is acceptable by the Jared Stillman standards. Number one, Brock Bowers. That I would turn the card in right now. It would be Brock Bowers.
Ooh.
The second thing, does anybody have an objection to Brock Bowers?
No.
Okay.
Bill
Here you go. Here's
does
Goodell.
clean
Here's
it up.
Goodell.
In the 2024 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select J.C. Latham.
Oh, no! Oh, no! God!
You know what?
No.
The liquid in Jared's glass.
Man.
Hey, do you believe
I'm sweating.
Hey, Jared, do you
and now
believe?
it's brown.
Do you believe in Bill Callahan? Do you believe in Bill Callahan?
1,000.
Do you or do you not? But this is a question. This is a serious question. Do you believe in Bill Callahan? Jared?
Draft night 2024. Titans on the clock. And I'm saying Brock Bowers. And the Titans drafted J.C. Latham. What did they say at the time? You'll see, Jared. Let Rand cook. So ESPN every year, Jeremy Fowler compiles this list. They put out a top 10 list of the best players at each position. And as they write in this, quote, a reminder of the rankings process. Voters gave us their 10 best players at a position. Then we compiled the results and ranked the candidates based on the number of top 10 votes. It was a composite average of dozens of interviews with research and film study from ESPN NFL analyst Matt Bowen. In total, more than 70 voters submitted a ballot on at least one position, and in many cases, all positions. Additional voting and follow-up calls with those surveys help us break any ties. Each selection includes quotes and nuggets, blah, 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 blah. But again, the objective was to identify the best players for 2025. This was not a 5-year projection or a career achievement award. Who are the best players today? So again, what they do, ESPN talks to execs, coaches, and scouts. That's it. They've already had the running backs, defensive tackles, edge rushers, safeties, and today it was tight ends. And number one, according to the league executives, scouts, coaches, at tight end in the NFL was Brock Bowers. Fowler writes, Bowers makes history in our top 10 poll. He's the first player to ever rank number one at his position after his rookie year. From Joe Burrow to Justin Jefferson and Sauce Gardner, many came close but couldn't quite pull off the feat. Yeah, I have a hard time believing that Joe Burrow, after winning like 4 games his rookie year with a torn ACL, would have ranked ahead of Tom Brady. That's just me. But again, from those guys, nobody could pull off the feat. Bowers, however, narrowly outdistanced George Kittle in the polls after carrying more than 50% of the first place votes. He was the highest graded overall player in the 2024 draft class in the eyes of some NFL scouts, but the position he plays, coupled with a strong quarterback draft and morons drafting inside the top 10, I put that in there, let me just say. But I included the morons part, but let's agree, dropped into the 13th pick. Quote, great person, hard worker, instinctive, great hands, matchup problem due to his speed and athleticism with an elite run after the catch ability, an NFC executive said. Added an NFL coordinator, he sort of just floats around out there and the game comes naturally to him. That could have been your tight end. And if I was your general manager and not Rand Carthon, he would be your tight end. Instead, the Titans are barely represented on this list. And on this list, they do not only the top 10 players, but a bunch of honorable mentions. For instance, number 10, the number 10 tight end is David Njoku of the Cleveland Browns. Then there's the honorable mention list. And I don't even know how many this is. Dalton Kincaid, Pat Freiermuth, Hunter Henry, Evan Ingram, Cole Kmet, Jake Ferguson, and Jonnu Smith. That is 7 honorable mentions. Then there are the guys also receiving votes: Dalton Schultz, Tucker Kraft, Kyle Pitts, Jawan Johnson, and Zach Ertz. That's what, another 5? So we're talking about a total of 22. No Chig Okonkwo. By the way, running back, same story. No Tony Pollard. Edge rusher. No Arden Key. Not that anybody would have ever expected Arden Key to be on the edge rusher group. Amani Hooker does not make it with the safeties. Only Jeffrey Simmons, who is ranked 4th at defensive tackle, is representing the Titans in any capacity so far on these lists. That being said, quite frankly, I'd be shocked if there were any other Titans that represented the team on the list. Cam Ward's not a top 10 quarterback. At least not yet. And what this goes to show you, what this goes to show me, is just how horrendously the Titans were run under Ran Carthon, which again goes back to my belief. And I put out a poll during the season, and I said, who do you think could run the Titans better? Me or Ran Carthon / Chad Brinker? I always included them together because when the Titans decided to take J.C. Latham over Brock Bowers, Chad Brinker was technically the president of football operations and was technically Ran Carthon's boss. Although apparently, technically, Ran Carthon was the one who had the choice to take J.C. Latham. But I go back to what I said this time, or what I said when the season was going on, and I kept telling you guys, hey, these people don't know football. I kept saying, I could do this job better than they can. And there's a whole level of discussion about Brinker in this, because when these top 10 lists come out and they highlight just how bad Ran Carthon was as a general manager of the Titans, and we'll get to him and Vrabel, because Vrabel's not innocent in this either. But when it highlights how bad of a job Ran Carthon did, taking a crappy guard with the 11th overall pick in the draft, taking a right tackle who they tried to play at left tackle, who really should be playing right tackle, over Brock freaking Bowers in the first round, a nose tackle who doesn't sack the quarterback and apparently doesn't help anybody else sack the quarterback, because if Tavandre Sweat did help the other team or help his other guy sack the quarterback, Jeffrey Simmons wouldn't be bitching all the time about how he does his job and he's not getting any help. So again, there's a whole Brinker element to this, which is, what the hell were you doing through all of this? Because I do believe Chad Brinker got a paycheck from the Tennessee Titans. So I guess he just didn't do anything, and then he got promoted because why not? But that's a different discussion. Because he had to be doing something when they put this ragtag group of nobodies together. But what I really believe is that the head coach and the general manager are the two people inside the building that are responsible for winning and losing. An offensive coordinator can get another job and nobody will ever look and say, hey, wasn't Josh McDaniels the offensive coordinator of the St. Louis Rams when they finished 32nd? Nobody ever talks about that. They only remember the good stuff, and they only say things like, oh, yeah, he was defensive coordinator when they won the Super Bowl, so he got that job. And that's how it works in the NFL, and I'm fine with that. The buck stops with the general manager and the coach. They get all the credit. They get all the blame. But this team is so bad right now. And J-Rob's not innocent in all this either. But again, I mean, his last draft class are in their last years contractually in the NFL. So now it really is the Rand, Vrabel, and Brinker and this group show. But I just cannot get over when I saw Brock Bowers, #1 tight end. And then the only thing about Chig Okonkwo, I remember when Chig got up to the podium for the offseason program and talked about all the vacations he was taking. He went to, I believe it was the UK and Brazil and Australia and Costa Rica and Japan. And Chig's like, yeah, I went all these places. And so when I went on the midday show that day, I said to Derrick, I go, hey, Derrick, how many vacations did you take when you played in the NFL in the offseason before you got back home and dialed in on the next year? And Derrick was like, well, I really only took one vacation every year, but that was because I had to get back to training and working out and, doing the things that it took for him to be good. And the difference between D Mace and Chig Okonkwo is that D Mace was good and Chig Okonkwo was not. In fact, not only did Chig Okonkwo spend his entire offseason before the OTA program out traveling around, doing everything, not working on football, Cam Ward, I saw this from a tweet that Kaharski had while I was out. There's a 19-minute video of Cam Ward throwing, just a throwing session with receivers out in Miami. And my favorite part is it starts off with Cam Ward claiming he's not late because they're waiting on, guess who? Chig. Play the cut.
What you mean? Hey, we said 4:30. I got here at 4:18. Man,
Go sit here and just wait on you.
oh, you gotta stretch on everything, man. I'm here on time. We still waiting on Chig. We still waiting on Chig. All right, Jay. Ellie, you need to call your teammate Chig. Tell him to hurry the up.
Oh.
Chig.
All right, girl.
Yeah. You know they do their own. So.
Hey, tell Chig to hurry up. Hey, yeah, Chig, those guys, they do their own thing. Yeah, it's called losing. They're very good at it. Eddie, if I was your general manager, you'd have Brock Bowers. And there is no way to question that. We just played the evidence coming back where I said, okay, if I'm the general manager, I'm running the card in right now. It is a Brock Bowers with the 7th overall pick, the best tight end in the NFL. Instead, let Rand cook, baby. And now you'll pay for it because your team is awful this year and your tight end who stinks and is in a contract year can't even be bothered to take time off of his vacation to show up on time for a throwing session that he said he was going to be at. Boy, they're really setting that Cam Ward up for success. 615-737-1025. A lot of you want to weigh in, so we'll get to your phones. 615-737-1025. Plus, there was one other thing, and it's not just Rand. Let me say this. It's not just Rand, but there is a co-conspirator when it comes to this who I think should be taking some heat for one thing I saw in these ESPN lists of where they talk to executives and coaches and scouts, and they say, okay, rank the top 10 players. We'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's 102.5, 106 for the game. Who loves Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey? I do. Talk about reliable. Nothing is as reliable as ice cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. There's no better way to end the vacation or to start the weekend off right than to do so with ice cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. That's how I'm going to have to start the weekend off. Fireball Whiskey. Ignite the night. Please do responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon.
what does it mean to you to kind of, for the Ravens to go and, commit to you for even more than, was last year as well?
I'm just very grateful for this organization. Just like last year, coming off the season I had, I wasn't really happy, and I wanted to prove myself and just get an opportunity, and they gave me that opportunity, and I'm very appreciative of how much they value me to give me an extension, and I just want to show them how much it means to me and how much this organization means to me by the way I work and what I do on the field.
There you go. That was Derrick Henry. So with these ESPN lists that are coming out about, hey, we've asked the coaches, we've asked the executives, like, hey, let's rank them. Another person who would still be a Tennessee Titan if I was running the show is Derrick Henry. And I clicked the running backs list when I was on vacation. I just wanted to see where Tony Pollard ranked on the list. And the answer was Tony Pollard does not rank on the list. In fact, here's who all gets an honorable mention and a receiving votes. This tells you how far down the list Tony Pollard is. And Tony Pollard might be like the third or fourth best player on this team. Honorable mentions outside of the top 10. Bucky Irving, Aaron Jones, Devon Achane, Breece Hall, James Conner. I really got to say, how did Tony Pollard not get on this list? Receiving votes. Kyron Williams, David Montgomery, Brian Robinson, Chuba Hubbard, DeAndre Swift, and Kenneth Walker III. Where does Derrick Henry rank on this list? Derrick Henry ranks second, behind Saquon Barkley. I'm not going to argue that. Saquon Barkley might be the best player in the NFL right now. Derrick Henry, number 2. Derrick Henry's ranking last season amongst the same group, the coaches, the executives, the scouts, was 9th. As far as the NFL, the grouping of voters is concerned, Derrick Henry's highest ranking in this list by a voter was number 1. His lowest ranking was number 6. Again, last year, Derrick Henry ranked 9th. An AFC executive said, quote, he'll slow down at some point, but he's got elite body composition and elite work ethic. He's a monster. No one wants to tackle him. And then when he wears you down, that's when he breaks off that big run. You want to know why Derrick Henry ranked 9th on this list a year ago? Because of the horse crap team that Ran Carthon and Mike Vrabel had put around him. The one that had Andre Dillard at left tackle. The one that drafted a crappy left guard with the 11th overall pick. The one that had a 270-pound center who couldn't snap, that got Ryan Tannehill killed. That group. And because they decided, hey, let's single up Myles Garrett at the end of the first half with Andre Dillard, Derrick Henry, with his team trailing by multiple scores in most of those second halves, didn't get the ball. And Derrick still ran for 1,500 yards. And yet, they were convinced, the Titans were, that Derrick Henry was done. Derrick Henry said it himself. He went on Dan Patrick. He said, I don't even think they believed in me. He said it on Bussin' with the Boys after he had done his exit interview with Ran Carthon. He said, they're going in a different direction, and that's okay. So if there was any question to you about just how bad that Ran Carthon, Mike Vrabel collaboration was, the fact that Derrick Henry dropped to 9th only to rebound when he's on a good team in a well-run organization to 2nd is the perfect indication. Carthon and Vrabel made everybody think that Derrick Henry was a part of the solution. Well, that is everybody except for me. Because I knew, they made Derrick look like he was part of the problem. I knew Derrick was part of the solution. Young quarterback, I was banging the drum saying, hold on, you might want to bring Derrick Henry back now. And the reason I bring this up is because even though Vrabel's gone and Carthon's gone, and I don't miss either guy, even though they're both gone, what got you in that ridiculous collaboration, this is going to work, was Amy thinking she could just will the football team into competitiveness without any understanding of what it actually takes to build a good football team. And the only reason I have a serious problem with that is because Amy should know better. The Titans should know better, but they don't. And that's why I have no faith going forward, is because of stuff like this. 615-737-1025. Our phone line by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says, thank goodness Jared is back. Those other guys were awful. They also constantly talk smack about him on his own show. Connor Newt, weren't you in while I was out? So what's this talking smack?
I didn't talk smack about you. I promise you. You can ask Jake Lyman.
Texter said.
Texter's lying.
You know what? Texters lie a lot, but or at least they mishear from time to time. You know, I get a Jared, you said, and it's almost always the opposite of what I said. So that I understand. One texter says, do you have some master plan to someday become a GM of the Titans or another NFL team? The answer to that is no. Now, let me just say this. If I got offered a general manager job, would I take it? Yes, I would. And before you say, holy crap, that's a ridiculous thing to even say, just know that our Secretary of Defense for the United States of America was hosting television on Fox News a year ago. So it is possible. Like, it is actually possible. This stuff happens more often than you think. Mike Pence was a talk show host in Indiana before he ran for Congress. Then he ran for governor. Then he became vice president of the United States of America. So it is possible to go from talk show host to vice president. So don't forget that. I know you people don't want to hear this. I know you people are going to say that Jared's talking out of his ass, and maybe there's something to that. But let me just say, I think if I became general manager of an NFL team, it'd certainly never be the Titans. But if I became general manager of an NFL team, I actually think I would do a pretty good job. And here's why I think I would do a pretty good job. I think I'd do a pretty good job because one of my first hires would be kind of a consigliere hire. Consigliere. I kept talking about Brock Bowers in the last segment about how on draft, now I'm sitting there saying Bowers. And you want to know who really made me see the light last year when it came to Bowers? Mark Dominic, the former general manager of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Mark Dominic's record in Tampa Bay was not very good because he drafted Josh Freeman, and that was a mistake. But Mark Dominic was general manager of the Buccaneers when he was like my age, 35. Well, Mark Dominic's like 50 now. And we had Mark Dominic on the day of the draft. And Mark Dominic said, hey, if I was general manager when I was 35 years old and Bill Callahan and Brian Callahan were telling me we got to take the tackle, and I'm thinking we got to take Brock Bowers, if I was 35 years old, I probably would have gone along with the rest of the group. At 50 years old, I would have said, we're going to take Brock Bowers, and then we'll figure it out. And that's the kind of guy that I would hire. So that is kind of the most important guy that I'm leaning on the most, is that guy who I know knows ball and knows how to do the job. And then I think other than that, it's just the people skills and it's an understanding of value, which is how you don't take a defensive tackle who can't rush the passer with the 38th pick in the draft. Leadership, what value does that have? Chig won't even show up on time for a workout, but I'm going to let Derrick Henry walk out the door? So do I have a master plan to become general manager of an NFL team? No, I don't. But I think I could do it. Now, again, how good of a general manager would I be or would I not be? I don't know. I mean, if I had Sam Darnold at quarterback last year and Brock Bowers at tight end, I think I'd be pretty good. But no, there's no master plan to be a general manager. But let me take this opportunity to say, if I got offered one, I ain't turning it down. Now, the NHL, I got no shot. I mean, I just say it right now. Like, when it comes to the Predators, it's like, well, if you're so smart, why don't you go be a general manager? I got no shot of being a general manager in the NHL, though I think some of those guys are stupid. I hear Elliot Friedman, and take Elliot with what Elliot says with a grain of salt, because he's talking to agents and teams. And so the New Jersey Devils keep Cody Glass or whatever. And Elliot puts out there, a lot of people wanted Cody Glass around the league. So the Devils said, well, we should just keep him because Cody Glass is good. And I'm like, no, he's not. I'm just telling you, he's not good. But I couldn't be an NHL GM. I could be an NFL general manager. I'm dead serious. 615-737-1025 here on the program. 615-737-1025. We'll get back to your phones. Plus, there is some NFL news that I don't get it, but it ain't my problem, and it ain't your problem, so it's not our problem, but good God. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company. So I know a lot of people think it's crazy that I just said I think I could be a general manager in the NFL. Again, I'm not campaigning for a job as far as general manager in the NFL is concerned. I think I could do it. And who knows? There's a lot of things that go into play as to whether or not you'd be any good. Who knows if I'd be good? I think I'd be good. I just know I wouldn't be as bad as some of the guys that have those positions now. And apparently, I don't think I'd be as bad as one guy who just got an extension within the last hour. Talk about a Friday news dump. Adam Schefter, quote, the Chicago Bears and general manager Ryan Poles have reached agreement on a contract extension that ties him to Chicago for the next 5 years through the 2029 season. Poles had 2 years remaining on his old deal, but now the Bears have him and new head coach Ben Johnson both under contract for a matching 5 seasons. Wow, the Bears are stupid. So, let me get this straight. The Chicago Bears hired Ryan Poles to be the general manager. Ryan Poles hired Matt Eberflus to be the head coach. They hired them together. So then they decide with Matt Eberflus as the head coach, they go 2 years with Justin Fields, and they end up with the number 1 overall draft choice because they made that deal with Carolina in order to move back for Bryce Young, and they end up with Caleb Williams. So I think Fields would have gotten a 3rd year in Chicago if it wasn't for the fact that they had the number 1 pick, but they did, and I would have done what they did. I would have taken Caleb Williams. But at that time, I remember saying, why is Matt Eberflus still the coach of the Bears? And I was doing Sirius XM, and I was doing the late night show right around the end of the 2023 season. And I believe the second to last week, Chicago had clinched the number 1 pick because of Carolina's terribleness. And I said, they're taking Caleb Williams. Anybody who tells you any different is lying. They are taking Caleb Williams, period. And then I said, but why are you bringing back Matt Eberflus? He's a defensive coach. Why would you bring in a coach on the hot seat or keep a coach on the hot seat when you bring in a rookie quarterback, knowing that you're probably going to fire Eberflus in a year, and then you're going to have to teach that young quarterback all over again how to do And I remember taking a call when this guy was like, Jared, you don't understand. Eberflus is a good coach, and they just hired Shane Waldron, and he's the best offensive coordinator in the NFL. And you'll see, you don't get it. And I texted Ryan Porth, who's the assistant program director up at the big station in Chicago, and I said to Porth, I said, is this guy not on the hot seat? He said, yeah, I don't think Eberflus is on the hot seat. I said, Eberflus isn't on the hot seat? Really? And we all know what happened with the Bears last year. And they've just extended their general manager? I think the guy's record is something like 16-39 as general manager. 275 winning percentage, 0 playoff appearances, 0 division titles, 15-36, and twice they finished in last place. 3 years before getting another extension. His best season was 7-10. Again, I think I can do better than that. Do I think I am Howie Roseman or would become Howie Roseman? No. Do I think I can do better than that? Yeah. Do I think I could do better than Rand Carthon? Yeah, I do. And let's not kid ourselves. You know, the Caleb Farley thing. I mean, I was like, absolutely not. No, you don't. No, you're not drafting that guy. And they did it anyways. Let's go to Doug, who's been waiting patiently. It is up next here on our program. Doug, thank you for calling and thank you for waiting. You go ahead.
I love you. But George Costanza's job as the traveling secretary for the New York Yankees is safe. You don't have experience in any of this. They're not going to replace somebody with you. Oh,
well, I don't understand why you think that Ryan Poles would be better than me. Do you not think that as general manager, I could have a 275 winning percentage?
I love you, but you just made my Friday. I'm driving and laughing my head off, but you're going to have to tip the girls at the club because I don't need to buy beers now. You're fantastic, and I know you're sincere, but it's hilarious. You have a great weekend.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand, though. How could it be worse than what happened here? How could I have done worse than the last 2 seasons the Titans have had? How could I have made worse picks than Peter Skoronski and J.C. Latham and Tavandre Sweat and Tajay Spears in the 3rd round? Again, think about the things that I have been the strongest on in terms of for and against, the strongest on keeping Derrick Henry, the strongest against L'Jarius Sneed. See, there's something that I think a lot of times people don't understand, and that to me is common sense. And a lot of times guys get jobs thinking, one day I want to be a general manager in the NFL. But nobody really knows what anybody in any of these other organizations, nobody knows what they do for a living. I was actually thinking about this with the Mafia the other day. The consigliere, a term I've already used, that is kind of the right-hand man to the Don, right? The consigliere. In the case of Tony Soprano, it was Silvio Dante who ran the Bada Bing Club. In the case of Vito Corleone, it was Tom Hagen who was a lawyer. Two very different guys. And again, what that tells you is that in your individual organization, just because you have a title doesn't necessarily mean what you do or what you're responsible for. And so a lot of these guys, we don't know what the director of player development does in Kansas City. We don't know what the assistant general manager does. No matter what they tell you, you have no idea how involved or not involved Mike Borgonzi was in John Dorsey and Andy Reid drafting Patrick Mahomes. Now, after it works, everybody over there will tell you that, oh yeah, I remember the meetings. I stood up on the table and I told them. Boy, Connor, I love you, but I don't know if you have the experience for the story I'm about to tell for you to be able to tell me I can tell it or not. I want to name names. Like, I want to name names on something, but I'm not going to do that. Just
do it.
I think like if Ian was here, I could ask Ian and like Ian would kind of be like, I don't know, bro. There was a guy who worked for the Titans when Floyd was general manager. And I think he was a scout, something like that. And Floyd's gone. So, I mean, what's he? I don't think he's even going to be mad at me. And I'm not going to mention the guy's name, although I kind of want to. And the NFL came to Floyd, NFL security. And they said to him, hey, we've got it through our NFL security investigation channels that this guy working for you has been selling players' phone numbers to agents, which is an absolute no-no. Floyd calls the guy into the office and he says, did you sell these guys the players' phone numbers? And he said, yeah. He said, I'm going to fire you and I don't ever want to see you again. I don't ever want to hear about you again. And if I do, we're going to have problems, which was basically his way of saying, don't you ever try to get a job in the NFL again, or I'm going to tell everybody what you did. Guy left the office. Floyd never heard from him again. Years later, this guy starts trying to become a media guy. And he starts telling stories of when I worked for the Titans and we were deciding to draft Eddie George. And I remember telling him, being like, hey, this guy's going on the radio in other cities and he's talking about when you guys decided to draft Eddie George. And Floyd laughed like, yeah, we gave a rat's ass what that guy thought. It's a long-winded way of saying you don't know what everybody does. And clearly Rand Carthon didn't do anything important in San Francisco because the guy didn't know football. Again, I have common sense. I know what I don't know because I worked with somebody who did know. And so the first thing I do if I got hired as general manager is to hire somebody who does know. Then when it comes to the people skills and everything else, I think I've got enough. The most important thing is accountability. And you have to be accountable yourself in order to hold others accountable. I think I could do it. Again, I don't think I could be worse than Ryan Poles, and he just got extended for the next 5 years. 615-737-1025. More of your phones. Plus, a story that wasn't a story, but I'm actually starting to think this may be a pretty good story. Like, it's actually kind of juicy now. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So about a month ago, or maybe it was less, I can't keep up, Pablo Torre and Mike Florio came out with the arbitration ruling that said that even though while it looks like the NFL did collude to keep guaranteed contracts out of the game, the arbitrator ruled that the NFL didn't collude and that both the NFL and the PA wanted to keep that secret. And Mike Florio was screaming, how can fans not care about this? And I said, fans don't care about it because it doesn't affect them. No, it doesn't affect them that Lamar Jackson didn't get a fully guaranteed contract. It doesn't affect them. If it does, maybe they'd care. I didn't care. Again, I really didn't think it was collusion to say, hey, what are we doing guaranteeing these contracts? To me, collusion is, hey, we're going to offer Johnny $1 million. So if you want to get Johnny, and his agent says we've got an offer for $3 million, that's not true. To me, that's collusion. So I didn't care much. Then ESPN dropped this bomb that came out yesterday. Don Van Natta and Kailin Kaylor at ESPN have dropped a bomb of a story about the new NFL Player Association Executive Director Lloyd Howell Jr. By the way, Kailin Kaylor will be on the show later today. Lloyd Howell Jr., who again is the NFL Players Association Executive Director. He's the president of the Players Association. So when it comes to negotiating the collective bargaining agreement, it's this guy and Goodell. Goodell represents the owners, and Goodell doesn't have final say, right? Goodell works for the 32 owners. And this guy, who also technically doesn't have final say because he works for the players. And they dropped this bomb. The Lloyd Howell Jr. was paid $3.4 million last year to be the president of the player or the executive director of the Players Association. At the same time, though, Howell maintained an outside part-time consulting job with the Carlyle Group, a private equity firm that coincidentally, we are sure, Dan Wetzel wrote, holds league approval to seek minority ownership in NFL franchises. Jim Quinn, who spent the last 25 years as the union's outside counsel, told ESPN, quote, it would be an outrageous conflict of interest for the head of a labor union to have interest in a third party that is aligned with the NFL. So basically the story is the NFL Players Association lost this arbitration ruling about collusion. Again, that's not as big of a story as Mike Florio and Pablo Torre want you to believe it's a big story. It just didn't matter to people. It just wasn't that big of a deal. But it also didn't make a lot of sense to me that at the same time, the NFL Players Association wasn't out there screaming, hey, fans, your owners are screwing you. Hey, they are screwing the players. They're lying, they're cheating, because the court of public opinion does matter in these things. It absolutely matters. And the Players Association wanted to keep this hidden as much as the league did. That didn't make any sense to me. The idea that Atlanta Falcon fans can look at this ruling and say, hey, the evidence says that our team was never interested in Lamar Jackson, so we had to sit through a year buying season tickets to watch Desmond Ridder play quarterback. That can piss off a lot of fans. But they didn't do that. And nobody seemed to know why they didn't do it. And then all of a sudden, it comes out that the NFLPA actually agreed to a confidentiality agreement with the NFL for no real reason. And then it also comes out that this guy who's the head of the players union happens to be doing consulting work for a capital group that may be investing in NFL franchises. And in order to invest in an NFL franchise, you have to get the green light from whom? the NFL. That doesn't feel like a conflict of interest to you? So I'm not sure I still care that much about this, other than what I really believe about the NFLPA is they have no leverage anyway for anything, so it doesn't matter. Years ago, there was a strike, and Tex Schramm, who was the general manager of the Dallas Cowboys at the time, threatened Tony Dorsett and others with their annuities that if they did not cross the picket line, then they would not receive the annuities that had been guaranteed upon signing their contracts, which forced them to cross the picket line and basically ended the strike. And from that point on, the NFL's always had more leverage than the Players Association. The NFL gets paid even if their games are not played by the TV networks. We can't agree to a contract. Okay, well, if we don't play, we still get paid billions of dollars. You don't, but we do. It's kind of the ultimate leverage. And every time that there's a CBA, the players get screwed. They get things that the owners don't care about, like, okay, we'll be lax with marijuana testing, or okay, we'll reduce the amount of off-season practices. But as far as the things that do matter, extra games, international travel, Thursday night football, flexing on Monday night football, we don't care about that. You're not going to get that. We're going to do as much of that as we want. We want to play on Wednesday. We want to sell it to Netflix. We're going to do it. But this idea that the head of the players union is consulting with a private equity firm that holds league approval to seek minority ownership in NFL franchises, that is some mafia stuff right there. That's like yeah, you got a problem with the union, eh? I mean, how could the players elect a union president that is this compromised? Christopher Moltisanti could represent the players with less conflicts of interest, and he was in the mafia. Like, it is wild. This story is wild. And I'm just like, man, I don't get it. I don't get how the players could be this stupid. I don't get how this guy still has a job. And you got to give Goodell credit. And I don't know if it just looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and this guy is totally on the up and up, and he's a thorn in Goodell's side, but he doesn't exactly feel like Marvin Miller over here now, does he? I mean, this is wow. The guy is doing consulting work for a venture capital firm on the side. Because I guess being president or executive director or whatever you want to call it, the leader of the Players Association that makes $3.5 million a year, that's not a good enough job. You got to have extra jobs to supplement your income there. Wow. To me, that's wild. 615-737-1025 here on the program. One texter says, doing better than Ryan Poles is not a hard bar to pass. I'm just saying, you people out there think that, oh, Jared, you would be such a bad general manager. It would be, couldn't be worse than it's been the last 2 years around here now, could it? Cory Curtis joins us next here, News 2 on the program. And I am going to ask Cory a question that if he does not answer the way that I want him to answer, I'm going to be very disappointed. Usually I just say you got to ask a man a question. He's going to say what he's going to say. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5. What is the game? Stillman and Company. So this all started earlier today when I was going over the ESPN top 10 list. You know, again, the ESPN talks to coaches, executives, scouts, and they have them ranked the top 10 at each position. And there's only one Titan so far in the, I believe, 5 position groups they've ranked. That is Jeffrey Simmons, the 4th highest ranked defensive tackle, that has been a top 10 player, an honorable mention, or having received a vote. One guy, Simmons. That's it. Meanwhile, Brock Bowers, who, again, we have indisputable evidence that I would have picked Brock Bowers over J.C. Latham in the 2024 NFL draft when the Titans were on the clock. In fact, Newt, can we just get that and I'll tell you when to stop it? This was when the Titans were on the clock. You can hear, again, Goodell make the pick and my reaction to it at the time.
With the 6th pick in the 2024 NFL draft, the New York Giants select Malik Neighbors.
Yes, sir.
Wide receiver, LSU.
Yep.
Okay, Titans are on the clock now.
Now, one of
me
these
just say
guys,
this.
Fashanu, Bowers,
Yep.
and Turner are all left.
Okay, so here's what is acceptable by the Jared Stillman standards. Number 1, Brock Bowers. That I would turn the card in right now. It would be Brock Bowers. Ooh. The second thing, does anybody have an objection to Brock Bowers?
No.
Okay.
Big
All right, here's
Gus
Goodell.
cleaned
Here's
it up.
Goodell. So it is indisputable that Brock Bowers, who today ESPN again, and it's not ESPN doing the rankings, but it is the coaches that they poll, the coaches, executive scouts, the NFL people who rank Brock Bowers as the number 1 tight end in the NFL. And as I said, I don't think I'd be a great general manager, but I think I could have done as well or better than Rand Carthon did. And then I see Ryan Poles get extended as the general manager of the Chicago Bears. And I think to myself, it's a really, I think we think general manager is this incredible position that you have to just be great in order to get, and you have to be in the right place at the right time. Nobody knows what Ryan Poles did with the Chiefs when he was there except the people that were there. Nobody knows. Nobody knows what Rand Carthon did with the 49ers except for the people that were there. Cory Curtis joins us now on the program from News 2. Cory, I am of the belief that if an NFL owner hired me to be general manager, I would be a better general manager than Rand Carthon. I'd win more than 27% of my games like Ryan Poles has. You know, again, a quarter of his games, that's what he wins. I think I'd win more than that. And I think all in all, I'd be okay. If things went my way, I might be pretty good. And if things didn't, I'd have a sob story to tell like everybody else. But I don't think I'd be as bad as some of these bad general managers out there. Do you agree with that sentiment?
Well, you're setting the bar really low for yourself. I mean, Trent Baalke probably put up numbers close to that in Jacksonville, and he was there a million years.
Trent Baalke went to a Super Bowl in San Francisco.
Yeah, but in Jacksonville, it did not go well. Let's be real. Okay, let's not rewrite Trent Baalke's time in Jacksonville by Trent Baalke's time in San Francisco. Okay, it wasn't good, but those results probably would not be hard to duplicate or a little bit better. The question I've got about Ryan Poles is, why did you feel like you had to extend him? Was somebody else going to, race to steal him away from you? I mean, were the Houston Texans or the Denver Broncos, waiting in the wings for that contract to expire and scoop him up? I don't understand that.
My theory behind why there are so many bad general managers in the NFL is that I think there are so many bad owners. And so when you ask, why is Ryan Poles getting extended? It's because the Bears want Ben Johnson on a 5-year contract, and they want Ryan Poles to be on a similar contract as Ben Johnson because the Bears have bad ownership. And that's what I believe. I mean, again, no disrespect to Amy, but I think the Titans are where they are because of their ownership. And I think that's how you ended up with this. Oh, Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel. This collaboration's going to be great. That collaboration had people around the league this time last year believing that Derrick Henry was the 9th best running back in the NFL. And now that Derrick goes to a good organization that has run well, Derrick Henry checks back in at number 2 on the list because, it wasn't Derrick Henry's fault. So my theory, Corey, is the league has bad general managers because the league has bad owners.
Well, look, when you're in charge, you have to recognize when you make bad decisions. Right? You can't sit on a guy and, it's like a quarterback. You can't keep running him out there if he's bad just because you picked him. All right. You got to pay him anyway, but that doesn't mean you got to play him. And if you made a bad choice at GM, which I'm guessing Amy recognized that she did, and she moved on, pretty quickly, but she's got to prove that the next one is better now. And so the clock is running on that. Going back to the Rand and Vrabel thing, I just remember how we were all like, who's in charge? Who's in charge? Who's in charge? This doesn't make any sense. Who's in charge? And they could never tell us like who was in charge. They just kept saying collaboration, and it was bad. And I guess that's my way of saying is we were all kind of right that it was messed up.
Well, I said at the time, this is what's happened. Amy has gone to those two and said, hey, you guys work together. They said, yes, ma'am. And that's, again, how you end up with who's actually in charge, and that becomes a whole problem. Cory Curtis with us on the program. So I do wonder this. These top 10 lists have come out, and again, what is it really indicative of? But no Titans.
Indicative of your 3 and 14.
No Titans ranked in the top 10 or honorable mention or receiving vote at running back, edge rusher, tight end, or safety. Simmons is the only one. He's the 4th ranked defensive tackle behind Jalen Carter, which is not nothing, by the way. I mean, that is pretty impressive when Jalen Carter is the guy ahead of you. And I think Jalen Carter might be the next Warren Sapp. So that is legit. Now, Simmons is the only guy. Not even Tavandre Sweat is an honorable mention or receiving a single vote.
Why should he? He had 1 sack last year.
Corey, how bad? Don't tell Titan fans that. How bad is this football team about to be?
Well, Jared, they just picked first. That doesn't happen by accident, right? I mean, they just picked first. That doesn't mean they don't have guys who can get better. But when you are 3 and 14, there's not a lot of guys on your team that are looking good. There's not a lot of guys on your team that are what you would call difference makers, okay? And if you want to be considered a top 10 player, you need to be a difference maker. I think Tony Pollard, I don't know if he's top 10 or not. I have to look at the list, but I think we'd all agree he wasn't a part of the problem last year. He was a pretty good player. But, in a league where you have free agency and when you draft every year and you can bring in new players every year, you should be able to stumble upon a few difference makers along the way. And this team just hasn't stumbled upon enough of them. And that goes back, like you're talking about, to the general manager situation. I was going back and looking at some of these drafts, and it's just like, specifically the Rand Carthon one. And it's just, how do you not draft more good players? How do you not sign, because we've seen this team sign good players. I mean, we've seen them sign Ben Jones and Kevin Mawai and, Delaney Walker, DeMarco Murray. I mean, they've brought in guys who are good players. But last year they gave a bunch of money to Kenneth Murray. Now he's a Dallas Cowboy. And so, they've got to do better. I mean, look, you don't pick first by accident, okay? It doesn't happen by accident. You had a lot of things go wrong for a long time, all right? They got there together. One person didn't make it happen. Some people have more room to blame than others, but this organization has been headed there, and they failed to pull themselves out of it. Now they're in it, and now they got to get out.
Cory Curtis, our guest here on the program from News 2. By the way, to your answer on Tony Pollard, because I don't think Tony Pollard's bad by any stretch of the imagination. I think Tony Pollard is solid. I don't think Tony Pollard can carry the ball enough to be a true number 1 running back. And I certainly don't think anything of Tajay Spears outside of, I think he's a 3rd down back, a league minimum guy. I think he's a Dontrell Hilliard type. But the top 10 running backs in the NFL end with, and I'll just give you number 9, Joe Mixon, number 10, Alvin Kamara. Then there's the honorable mention list. Bucky Irving, Aaron Jones,
really
Devon A-Chain, Breece Hall, and James Conner. So no Tony Pollard.
Yeah,
Then there were guys.
A-Chain is explosive. I mean, and he's just honorable mention.
Here are the guys also receiving votes. Kyron Williams, David Montgomery, Brian Robinson, Chuba Hubbard, DeAndre Swift, and Kenneth Walker III. Tony Pollard doesn't even get a vote, Corey.
Yeah, but again, he's on a 3-14 football team. If he's on the Detroit Lions, he probably gets a vote.
Well, there's a reason why the Detroit Lions don't have him on their team.
Yeah, well, they've got 2 good ones.
Because they're good.
They got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Yeah, they got 2 good ones. Absolutely.
So there's one thing that did send me up a wall when I was gone. I saw a video. It was of Cam Ward working out, and the video starts with them giving Cam Ward a hard time about being late, which I thought Cam was Mr. 5 a.m. in the door, but apparently Cam was running a little late. They were giving him a hard time. And Cam was saying, no, I'm on time. Chig is late. We're still waiting on Chig. And it rubbed me the wrong way when Chig got, up at the podium and talked about all the vacations that he took this offseason before the OTAs. And you were the one that told me that when the Titans were pumping Cam Ward's tires about 4 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever it is, that Chig was like, I don't have any idea about that. Corey, I can't stand him. He's got to go. Your thoughts? Chig Okonkwo can't even make it on time for the off-season workout organized by Cam Ward.
I know we talked about this before. When you have culture-setting players, you either get on board or you get out. Okay? And I like Chig as a person. I like Chig as an athlete. He's been very inconsistent, though, as a football player. And, he's at a critical time in his career where you would think he would be all in. Because, look, it doesn't matter what happened the first 2-3 years for him. If he has a good year this year, he gets paid, right? If he catches 60 passes for, 690 yards and 7 touchdowns, Chig Okonkwo gets paid, all right? This is a critical year for him. And you'd like to see some evidence that he's treating it as such. Now, look, I don't know how much he's working out and when and where and with who. I don't know. All I can go by is what you told me and what he told me, when I asked about the 5 a.m. stuff. And look, I know that was for rookies, but he's your new quarterback. And I would think you do everything you needed to do to get on board with him. And so, it's a make or break year for him. I understand your frustration. I do. I don't get as appalled about stuff usually as much as you do. So that's probably why I'm not, but I'd like to see more. It's like Brian Callahan said with all these guys, this is the expectation. I need more. And,
he ain't going to push him any harder, though, to get more. That's the problem. Cory Curtis with us. By the way, in the video, Cam Ward's like, we're waiting on Chig. I want to be like, Cam, we've been waiting on Chig for a long time. Let me tell you something. You keep waiting on Chig. It's never going to happen. Fireball Hot Take Friday. What's your hot take this week?
I was in my car thinking about just how incredibly inept and pathetic the AFC South is and has been. And it is staggering to me that typically 3 out of 4 teams in one division can just be putrid year in and year out. Putrid. I went and looked it up. In the last 20 years, I couldn't believe it. The AFC South has picked first or owned the first pick 7 times in the last 20 years. 7. And they've had the second overall pick 4 times. So in the last 20 years, the AFC South has owned the first or second overall pick over 50% of the time.
That's wild.
Look, none of these organizations are excused. Because while the Texans are on top now, they're on top now because they were horrible. They looked like a semi-pro team for a couple of years there. And, the Jaguars can't get out of their own way. The Titans have owned the top pick, 2 times now, and the second overall pick another time. So they can't. None of these teams can sustain any type of success. The Colts obviously did when they had Peyton Manning, and to a degree when they had Andrew Luck, although I would say they never achieved what they should have achieved with Andrew Luck. And it goes back to what you're saying. You have to question ownership with all of them.
Yep.
Because there's an old saying that stuff, there's another word for it, rolls downhill. And, there's a reason that this division is at the bottom year in and year out. Year in and year out and year in and year out. It is time to get something figured out. There's a whole division that needs to look in the mirror and say, are we serious people or not?
Cory Curtis, well said. By the way, do we know if you're going to be back on the preseason broadcast this year for the Titans? Has that become official, unofficial yet?
It is my belief I will be. I have not been given my new Titans polo or not yet. So, but yeah, that's my belief. I will be.
Because wasn't Mike Keith the one kind of in charge of all that as the director of broadcasting, and now he's out? So
I have no idea.
But is it going to be you and Charles and Paul Burmeister, or are there going to be some more changes?
As far as I know, I have not been told of any changes.
Okay. Well, that's good.
But usually I show up for the first game and find out everything.
There you go. Cory Curtis will be doing his news hit at 4:30, and then he may say, hey, Bob, got to go because I'll be calling the game in the next 5 minutes. We'll see you and talk to you then.
No.
By the way, please do me a favor, Cory Curtis, if you could for me, and please give my congratulations to your colleague, Davis Nolan, who yesterday announced that in August he will be calling it a career after 40 years at News 2. And I love Davis. I think he's a great weatherman. I think he's a good man. And I got to say this. I remember when he came and spoke to us when I was in the first grade at USN, and he told us that he was going to give us a shout out on the news. And I watched the news that night, hoping to see that shout out, and I did not see the shout out. And even though I like Davis, even though I've gotten to know Davis a little bit over the years, even though I celebrate that man's retirement, I've never forgotten that lack of a shout out.
Wow. By the way, also, I think Bob Mueller is celebrating 50 years of broadcasting. So it's a big congratulations to him this year as well.
Well, Bob ain't going anywhere because he hadn't aged a day in 30 years. But congratulations to him as well. But please, seriously, pass along my congratulations to Davis.
I will. And by the way, the Fishing Funtacular will live on.
There you go. Cory Curtis, News 2, as always on our program. Great stuff. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in on the program. That's 615-737-1025. So I heard the single most disingenuous thing while I was gone that I got to get to. It was just bull crap to the nth degree. We'll get to it next. Stillman Company, 125 game.
I wish it was a cap. Like the top of the line player makes this. And if you're not that type of guy, you're not going to make that. That's what the NFL does. So the problem is you got a guy that's not that darn good, but he could go to another school and they give him $500,000 and you can't compete with that. That don't make sense. All you have to do is look at the playoffs and see what those teams spent. And you understand darn near why they're in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to compete with somebody who's giving $25, $30 million to a darn freshman class.
There you go. Coach Prime says we need a salary cap in college football. By the way, I understand Ohio State spent a bunch of money on their team. I get that. Did SMU? Did Indiana? Does Notre Dame? I'm sure Notre Dame's got some NIL money, but does Notre Dame have LSU's NIL money? Remember, LSU's coach came from Notre Dame because Notre Dame would not pay LSU's coach. But Deion Sanders advocating for a salary cap in college football is rich. And it's rich for a lot of reasons. Not just the obvious hypocrisy of, oh, now you want a salary cap because things don't go your way, but you don't have a problem poaching players from other teams in the portal saying, oh, everybody, I'm bringing my luggage with me and it's Louis. Oh, now that your son's gone and Travis Hunter's gone, now you think we need to cap the players. That's the first thing. And obviously everyone can easily connect those dots. But there are three things about this that truly drive me crazy. And this is what I don't like about Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders seems to always be a man of faith, and that's fine. And Deion Sanders seems to always act like he's doing what's right. And Deion Sanders basically always tries to paint himself as a saint when I really think he's just a narcissist. But let's get back to the issue at hand. Deion Sanders thinks we need a salary cap in college football. Did anyone ask Deion Sanders a follow-up and say, hey, Deion, how would you feel about capping coaching salaries? At one time, Deion said God instructed him to take the Jackson State job, only for Deion to hit the transfer portal and go to Colorado because they offered more money. Do coaches need a cap? Oh, we can't give Ryan Day $12 million. We just can't do that. Because I hear coaches saying we need to cap the players' money, but I don't hear anybody saying we need to cap the coaches' money. So why should you cap the players' money if we're not going to cap the coaches' money? I don't understand that. Number two, Deion Sanders, unlike these other college coaches that get all high and mighty when it comes to, I tell you, the NIL, Deion Sanders played Major League Baseball in 1994 when the players went on strike. And the crux of the issue that was being debated during the 1994 Major League Baseball players strike was a salary cap. The owners wanted to implement a salary cap. The players were vehemently against a salary cap. In fact, the strike ended in 1995 when now Supreme Court Justice Sona Sotomayor came out and said the owners cannot unilaterally put in a salary cap without the players' agreement in the collective bargaining agreement. So which side was Deion on in 1994? And how does that compare to now? Because, again, in 1994, the Major League Baseball players didn't want a salary cap imposed on them. And the owners wanted to impose a cap, even though the players weren't going to accept it. And I don't remember Deion saying, no, guys, let's accept the cap. We need a cap in baseball so that the Yankees and the Dodgers won't be the only good teams, and so the Kansas City Royals and the Pirates can compete. So how does that compare to where Deion sits today? And third, what happened to Deion's motto? You play good, they pay good. Isn't Deion Sanders a chief poacher in the transfer portal because of the money? Wasn't he the guy that danced around in music videos with dollar signs? His son's logo was a dollar sign squared. So now Deion Sanders thinks we should have a salary cap? And here's why I don't take Deion Sanders seriously. And here's what drives me crazy about people hearing this and thinking that, man, this is an impactful comment from somebody whose opinion should matter, when Deion Sanders' opinion should not matter at all about anything. There are two sets of people in this world. People who believe that the rules should be fair and people who believe that the rules should only benefit them. And personally, I can't stand anything that somebody in the second category of people says seriously, because whatever it is they're trying to argue is never within good faith. The kind of person who only likes rules when they benefit them. And I'll say this, there have been some expert strategists who have manipulated the rules and bent the rules. They're called lawyers. They go in one case and they argue one side of the table. Then they go in another case and they argue the other side. I get it. It makes sense. But I can't take that person seriously when it comes to a good faith negotiation. When it comes to what's in the best interest of ball. Because this isn't in the best interest of ball. This is in the best interest of Deion. And so with Deion, I have no idea how many follow-up questions he got asked when he said we should have a salary cap about, well, weren't you a Major League Baseball player in 1994 and you went on strike because the owners tried to put in a salary cap? So I have no idea how many follow-up questions he got asked and how many comments that when he got asked about that he just turned around and said things like, oh, well, that's bull junk, which is what he always says. Oh, that's bull junk. You be blessed. I would love for somebody to say, hey, Deion, Rob Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, desperately wants to implement a salary cap in the 2027 Major League Baseball CBA. Do you agree that we need a cap in baseball to keep the Dodgers and the Yankees from dominating the sport? Or do you stand with your union brethren with which you used to be a member of when you played professional baseball? But my guess is that no one would ask Deion that and that Deion wouldn't answer it. And Deion would probably just refuse the question and again call it bull junk, which is what he did when all that talk about Shedeur Sanders falling in the draft came up. It was all bull junk until it wasn't. But spare me football czar Deion Sanders with his desire to unconstitutionally implement a salary cap in college football simply because it benefits him. It is so disingenuous. It is in such bad faith. And it is such bull junk. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And speaking of bull junk, there's just one thing that I think we all need to be ready for this upcoming week. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
Do you agree with Deion, just off the top, that college football should have a salary cap?
In a perfect world, of course I agree, but we don't live in a perfect world in college football, which is one reason it makes it so bizarrely interesting. And I find it just a tad bit interesting and maybe a slight bit hypocritical that Deion Sanders, after his two great players, I mean, we're not just talking about good players in terms of Travis Hunter, one of the best players in modern college football history, as they depart, suddenly Deion wants the cap. Can you imagine what Travis Hunter would have been worth, and would Deion have been in favor of a cap then? Of course not. So Deion is simply trying to tell the media, hey, let's talk about something other than my football team, which is going to be painfully boring and perhaps even mediocre this year.
There you go. That was Paul Finebomb, and I think there's a lot of truth in what Paul said. That said, though, next week is Paul's week to shine. SEC Media Days, and we'll be moving things around. We'll have the morning show in its usual slot. And then Adam and Willie will be doing DVD early for, I think it's for 2 hours. Maybe it's 3. I don't know. Then Chase and Big Joe, noon to 3, will come on at 3 o'clock because Chase and Big Joe will be at SEC Media Days next week. And I just want everybody to prepare when it comes to SEC Media Days. Prepare for a whole lot of bitching next week about NIL and transfer portals and paying players and whatnot at SEC Media Days. But I don't really understand the complaining. The fans don't care, by and large. And then what does telling me, like me, the media guy, me, Jared Stillman, the talk radio host, what does telling me we need NIL reform, what does that do for you? Like, am I the Godfather? Like, do you go on Paul Finebomb's show and you say, oh, Godfather, we so desperately I will do what I must for a cap in college football because I, at the University of South Carolina, cannot afford to pay Lenora Sellers the kind of money that Lenora Sellers can get somewhere else. Godfather, please, can you grant me this wish? Because that is a favor I cannot do. And what I oftentimes wonder again, this should be for every media person that's going to SEC or ACC or Big Ten or whatever media days. This should be for every single one of you. Every time a coach says we need to cap player salaries, you should ask, do we need to cap coaching salaries? Because this is what I believe has happened. I believe what has happened is a group of people did their job one specific way for a long time. And then after they did their job that specific way for a certain amount of time, they decided that, hey, the rules are going to change. The Supreme Court came down and said, look, you, the NCAA, cannot tell players that they can't earn money off their name, image, and likeness. So now players are going to get paid. And once that happened, now these college coaches that had gotten used to doing business a certain way now had to start doing business differently. They don't like that. They liked it when they could sign a guy out of high school. And if you don't like the way things are here, well, guess what? You got to sit out. You got to go somewhere else and sit out. When I was at Louisville, there was a woman that started on our national championship team. It wasn't a fit. Quite frankly, she wasn't good enough. She basically got kicked off the team. She didn't want to leave. She got kicked off the team and had to sit out the next year when she transferred. I mean, it was wrong. But the deck was stacked against them. The deck is not stacked against them anymore. And the coaches don't like it. And so all they do is complain. And I'm sorry. But get your ass out there and recruit. That's what the money that you make is for. The money that they make is to go out there and score touchdowns or to sack the quarterback or to make a big play in a game. The money that you make is to get those players on your team. So what the rules have changed? The industry changes. Your industry, college football, isn't the only industry in the world that has to adjust. Guess what? 25 years ago, there weren't 80,000 podcasts that people could listen to on their way home from work. So if you wanted to listen to sports radio, there was one or maybe two choices for you 25 years ago. Now, if you want to listen to a podcast about 17-year-old NHL prospects, I'm sure there's one that's out there. Maybe there's 10 that are out there. I don't know. So we have to adjust. I don't hear college football coaches having any empathy for me. So why would I have any for them? Get your ass out there and do your job. I don't want to hear any complaining next week about these rules aren't fair. You know, NIL and the transfer portal, and it's ruined this, and it's, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Speaking of complaining, we've not talked about Jeffrey Simmons in a while. But Jeffrey Simmons does deserve a congratulations for making the top 10 defensive tackle list. He was number 4. But we need to talk about what they said about Jeffrey Simmons. People inside the league, executives, scouts, etc. The ball knowers. We'll do it next. Stillman and Company, Orders by the Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So I have been off for roughly a week. Last Friday was July 4th. God bless the USA. And then I was off the first 4 days this week, so that's a week. And then for the previous 2 weeks before that, we pretty much talked all hockey. So it's been a while since we've discussed Jeffrey, it's never my fault, Simmons. And I have long held this belief that of this ragtag group of nobodies the Titans call a football team, Jeffrey Simmons is the best player. Even though Jeffrey Simmons drives me crazy, and I think Jeffrey Simmons is a bad leader, and quite frankly, I'm not sold that he's a very good guy. But ESPN's top 10 list has no Titans players listed at running back, edge rusher, safety, or tight end. Not within the top 10, not within an honorable mention, not even receiving a vote. The one guy who cracks the list is Simmons. He ranks 4th on the list at defensive tackle, which is absolutely nothing to scoff at, especially when noting that Jalen Carter of the Eagles, who is a beast, is 3rd. But one of the issues Simmons has is that he doesn't get to the quarterback. And that's not just an issue that Simmons has on the football field. That's an issue that we have with Simmons, with the money and the profile and all the talk, is if you're going to talk all that trash, you need to hit the quarterback. Simmons has an issue with it because he has made it clear that it's not his fault and that people who argue otherwise don't know what they're talking about. In fact, here's a compilation over the last year with one cut during the season, one cut during the offseason, and one cut during the day that he decided to grace everybody with his presence at mandatory minicamp of him explaining why he doesn't get sacks and affect the quarterback.
I'm doing my job. I think at the end of the day, doing what's been asked for me from my coaches, and I'm not trying to be play hero football, letting the plays come to me. So when I turn on the tape and the plays that I should make, I make them plays. So I feel like I've been playing a pretty good football so far.
In my opinion, I wish people would, especially on the outside world, they say, oh, he had a down year, this and that. But, they don't take in consideration that, I wonder that, especially like this week, they got the NFL coaches meeting and they all down there, the media down there. And why not just go ask some of these coaches, head coaches, what is your game plan against number 98 for the Titans? It's never single blocks. Mm-hmm. So instead of looking at in my opinion, instead of looking at the game stat sheet, look at the game itself and how many hands is on number 98 every game.
The tape. Watch the tape, right? That's what you're saying. Watch the tape.
At this point, you hate to say it to the media because then some people want to consider you as a butthole, but it's like sometimes that do get a little frustrating, and just to hear you not having a good year, what you think the problem is. I'm like, because I'm getting double teamed 95% of the game. So
I mean, last year we went into games. We knew what team was doing. We knew team was game planning me. We knew team was going to double me. They're going to slide to me. So if we know that, we have to do a better job, and we talked about it, and we've been talking about it since last year, and everything, even the individual, we're going through things and working through things together as a group, the whole up front. And you're talking about, all right, this guy getting a slide, then we got to have a balanced rusher. Got that guy on the other side getting a one-on-one. 8 guys on the edge, they got one-on-one.
So again, it's never his fault, right? I'm doing what's asked of me. Go watch your tape. They don't understand. Well, ESPN, when talking to people inside the league, coaches, executives, scouts, the people that do watch the tapes, had this to say about Simmons, quote, evaluators are trying to make sense of his lack of production last season, including 5 sacks and 9 quarterback hits, the latter of which ranked next to last in the top 10 or honorable mention categories amongst players who played most or all of the season. Quote, still dominant versus the run. I didn't see the same pass rush explosion, an NFC executive said. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What happened to watch the tape? Did the NFC executive not watch the tape? Then there was this little nugget that, again, I've been yelling and screaming about since the day Denico Autry left the building. Quote, others cut Simmons some slack, noting that playing on a bad team without much support on the outside is a factor. One coach noted that Denico Autry, a Titan from 2021 to 2023 before signing with Houston as a free agent, was an underrated edge rusher next to Simmons, and the two played off each other well. But what about the big boy drafted 38th overall? And yet, it's never Simmons' fault. You don't understand. I'm doing my job. We talk about it. We know they're going to double me. We know they're going to slide to me. So we have to do our job. When Simmons says that, if you have a brain, you know what he's saying. When he says, we talk about it, we go into the games, we know they're going to double team me. So we need to make the play. What he's really saying is, you need to make the play. Not my fault. I did my job. And you want to know why Simmons believes this? Even though there are executives and evaluators around the league that are looking at Simmons and saying, well, he's still really good against the run, but I don't see the explosion in the pass rush. Because everybody that Simmons interacts with on a daily basis goes up to him, puts their nose right up to his ass, lets him fart, and goes, oh, that smells great, Jeff. Listen to these cuts. This is Denard Wilson and Brian Callahan, and you tell me if you think these guys ever demand more of Jeffrey Simmons.
What do you expect of him against double teams? Premier defensive tackles around the league.
Right. Well, look, it's this. When you get a double team, and if you know how to work, how the four guys work up front, it's 4 against 5. When you get the slide, all right, it's always either you work an edge or you work to split them. Because you got to understand this. Sometimes you have to split them and the other guy gets the one-on-one. If you don't split them, now it's a hole where a quarterback can escape. So, like I said, Jeff's going to win, and he has been double teamed and one-on double teams, but we have to do a better job up front, rushing together, being 4 against 5, all right, against their front, and then presenting certain packages to make it easier for him to win. Jeff's going to win against anybody. Jeff's a dominant football player. Every team in the National Football League would love to have 98 line up on their defensive line.
You talked a lot about being double teamed. Mm-hmm. Isn't every good defensive tackle in the league constantly double teamed, and aren't most of them overcoming that on a regular basis?
I think it's a little more nuanced than that. To sometimes yes, and sometimes no. Most really good interior players are getting a slide to them most of the time, so they have to deal with that. But I think one of the things that we can do a better job of collectively up front is our rush, working together better. Those things are areas of improvement for us.
How do you assess Jeff's play to this point?
I think Jeff's been playing excellent. As you can see, teams don't run the ball up the middle on us. And then, like I said last week, they slide to him a lot. But he's been doing an excellent job. He's controlling and neutralizing the line of scrimmage along with Sweat. And he continues to just be one of our better players.
I'm curious, though, because, you see a lot of players in this league, whether it's Chris Jones, whoever, it slides to them, but they still manage to produce.
Well, it's also about us on first and second down, stopping the run and allowing him to get off. And then, we've been playing teams where when we stop the run or we create negative plays on first down, they don't allow us to rush because they screen.
I have a hard time believing that these teams that the Titans play are so smart that they just have the perfect way to scheme out Jeffrey Simmons out of the game. And that these same teams can't scheme out Myles Garrett, can't scheme out TJ Watt, can't scheme out Jalen Carter, can't scheme out the guys who, actually do produce when it comes to sacking the quarterback. But if you listen to Brian Callahan and Denard Wilson, you would think that Jeffrey Simmons is the best player in the history of the NFL. And I think that's where Jeffrey Simmons gets it from. And that's where Jeffrey Simmons gets the audacity to clap back when people say, why don't you ever sack the quarterback? You make $23.5 million a season. Why don't you ever impact the game and help your team win? Well, these people think I'm a butthole, but they don't watch the game. They don't look at the tape. Did the NFC executive that said that you're dominant against the run, but you don't have the same pass rush explosion, does he not watch the tape? So now Jeffrey Simmons, again, 4th in the NFL. I still think he's the best player on the team. But you can't say, go watch the tape. And you can't say, you don't know football. Because here are evaluators telling ESPN, yeah, we're trying to figure out why he isn't more productive when it comes to hitting the quarterback. Do they not know ball? Are the only people that know ball Brian Callahan and Denard Wilson? The worst coach in the NFL last year? The defensive coordinator of the worst team in the NFL last year? Are those the only guys that know football? So it seems like Simmons' excuse that is consistent, it's not my fault, go watch the tape, you don't understand, does not hold water. And this year, there needs to be pushback when he doesn't sack the quarterback, and I don't think he's going to. 615-737-1025, which is the phone number, 615-737-1025. A name I did not see on that top 10 list, no matter how crazy Titan fans get about it. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game. Fireball Whiskey, no better way to start your weekend off than with ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. Goes down so smooth and it tastes so great. There is no better way to ignite the night than to do so with ice-cold Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey. So grab a Fireball and ignite the night. Please do responsibly and be 21 years or older to enjoy. That's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey.
somebody in his mold who's never going to be Jeffrey Simmons in terms of his body type and his role. What is a reasonable next step for him to be more impactful in the pass rush?
Well, I think, he's mastering, his craft of what to do. His primary, secondary move, he has a better feel for what works well for him. So I think that as long as he keeps pressing himself and getting better and better at one or two moves, he'll get in better shape this offseason. That's one of the things we talked about, dedicating himself to transforming his body, becoming, lighter on his feet. Because when you watch him, he can do everything, from the standpoint of, being a big man, how big he is, he can do everything, but just getting in better shape, fine-tuning his craft, working on the moves that work well for him. And then ultimately he uses his power. So if he gets a one-on-one, he can power rush anybody there is, and collapsing the pocket will help the defense.
There you go. That was Denard Wilson telling you that everything's going to be fine, especially when it comes to Tavandre Sweat. So last year when the Titans took Tavandre Sweat at 38 overall in the draft, I thought to myself, wait a minute. You took a nose tackle who doesn't sack the quarterback with the 38th pick in the draft, who's got serious red flags, including one surrounding his weight. Oh, Jared, you're just a hater. And all these executives and all these people around the league said, yeah, that was probably a little too rich for us. We don't think he's going to become that. Oh, Jared, you're a hater. Then during the season, Tavandre Sweat plays on first and second down and does a good job of stuffing the run. People then say, see, Jared, you're a hater. Tavandre Sweat, he's so good. Tavandre Sweat finished with 1 sack last year. Tavandre Sweat, according to the ESPN top 10 list, again, this is not ESPN's opinionated list. This is a list compiled by ESPN. It's kind of like a poll. When Monmouth University puts together a poll for the next presidential election, it is not what the people of Monmouth University think. They're the ones that conduct the poll. This is an NFL people poll conducted by ESPN. Dexter Lawrence 1, Chris Jones 2, Jalen Carter 3, Simmons 4, Quinnen Williams, Leonard Williams, Nnamdi Madubuike, DeForest Buckner, Vita Vea, Cam Hayward, honorable mention, Christian Wilkins, Derek Brown, Zach Allen, Zach Seiler, Kobe Turner. Also receiving votes, Kenny Clark, Aleem McNeil, Ed Oliver, Deron Payne, Kalijah Cansey, and Osa Osa from the Cowboys. Nope, don't see Tavandre Sweat on the list. And all the bitching that you people did last year with Tavandre Sweat. Hit that pick out of the park, Jared. Yeah, for a first and second down nose tackle. But when you're picking 38th, you need guys that get to the quarterback and actually sack him. Or, if nothing else, somebody that will help the guy who is supposed to sack the quarterback, which clearly did not happen for Jeffrey Simmons, who, once again, we've pointed out at every possible opportunity has stated that his lack of production last year was not his fault. Where's Sweat? For all the people out there that try to hammer me over the head midday show about how great Tavandre Sweat is, why didn't he make the list? Why wasn't he an honorable mention? Why didn't he get a single vote? Kenny Clark got a vote. Aleem McNeil got a vote. That guy from the Cowboys, whose name I can't even pronounce, he got a vote. But no vote for Tavandre Sweat. Kevin says, please stop playing Simmons cuts. It is sickening to listen to this guy. It's going to get me fired up. What a loser. Joey from Gallatin says, if it's not being coached, it's being allowed. What Floyd used to say is you're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. Sounds like with Simmons, it's being allowed. For example, he was throwing punches in practice. He started an altercation with Buck, sat out of OTAs when no one else on the team did. He is so entitled, but his actions are never corrected. I mean, I do wonder if at some point Callahan's going to snap. If at some point Callahan realizes that he has a culture of losers, whether it is Jeffrey Simmons, it's never his fault, Tavandre Sweat, who Jim Wyatt is already questioning his work ethic on Titan Stationery, L'Jarius Sneed, I don't even know where to begin with that, and Chig Okonkwo, who needs to take as many vacations as possible and cannot show up on time to throw with Cam Ward. I wonder when Callahan's going to look at it and say, all right, I got to start tuning these guys up, or else it's going to cost me my job. Or if he's just going to be Mr. Nice Guy to the end. Again, like I've said, I've told TD, I don't think Callahan has it in him to hold anybody accountable. I don't think he can do it. I'd like to see him try, but I don't think he can. One texter says, Simmons isn't great. He's solid, but he needs an elite edge rusher to be great. If you need an elite edge rusher to be great, what does that really tell you? Can I ask you who used to hit behind Willie Mays? Or who used to hit behind Hank Aaron? Because if you need good protection in the lineup in order to get fastballs to hit, to be a good player, chances are you're probably just not that good of a hitter. I mean, I'm sorry, but I have to believe that Hank Aaron probably hits no matter who's ahead of him and who's behind him. When you tell me, hey, he's got to have elite edge rushers in order to be a great player, well, then you're really not a great player. And I think that's the issue with Simmons. Simmons is a good player who parades around like a great player and has the attitude of an elite player. And the parading around and the attitude are a problem when you produce like an okay player. Jay says Brian Callahan is way too nice and holds no one accountable. I mean, I am going to be on his ass this training camp. And I hate saying it because I like Brian Callahan. I want Brian Callahan to work out. I just don't think it's going to happen. So, make of that what you will. 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025, which is our phone number if you want to weigh in. So there was this big story that came out with the NFLPA, the head of it, apparently very conflicted. Kailin Kaylor, who's done a lot of the research for this, a lot of the reporting on this for ESPN, going to join us next. So we'll get into that. Again, I'm just shocked at the gall on this guy. And is this going to affect football at all? We'll get into that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. All right, let's talk about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. It's funny. I actually, even while I was on vacation, I actually had Hiller do work on one of my homes. Why? Because I needed something done. I needed it done then, and I did it with Hiller. So I was in Florida on the phone with the Hiller people. That is how much I trust them. Have you ever called a plumber, an electrician, or an HVAC tech and felt like they were trying to sell you something that you didn't need? If a deal sounds too good to be true, like a $99 club membership or a $29 tune-up, it is. The reality is they have to find something to fix so they can cover your costs for the discounted club memberships. Again, when it comes to Hiller, I just want the thing taken care of. I want it done with, and that's what Hiller will do. Unlike the other guys, Hiller never offers deals designed to trick you or sell you something you do not need. And you hear me all the time talking about Hiller, but that is why I trust them in my home even when I am not there. So be like me and schedule online at happyhiller.com. That's happyhiller.com. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today. I cannot get over this story that a couple of weeks ago, Mike Florio and Pablo Torre came out with, the NFLPA was hiding the collusion and blah, blah, blah. And I could not get over the fact that fans just didn't care. Fans did not care about the inner workings between the PA and the union, the PA and the league, and what it meant about guaranteed contracts and everything else. And I didn't really care that much either. Again, I think the issue with the NFL and guaranteed contracts are that the league has all the leverage. It's baked into the cake. When a guy is drafted in the first round and signs a rookie contract, that money that he is to receive is completely slotted, right? It's like, okay, you're the first pick, you're going to get this much money. So it's already decided what you're going to get. You agree to that by entering the league with the union that has represented you before you even get into it. And so now you are entitled to the rules that are set, and they are collectively bargained and they're agreed to. And an NFL team can pay you and give you the money after 3 years. They don't have to pay you and give you the maximum amount of money that you would get on the free market until you're 7 years in. So I didn't think that was that big of a deal. Then I saw this bomb of a story that came from ESPN, and maybe it's the gossip in me that got into this, but this executive director of the NFLPA, holy crap. So Don Van Natta Jr. and Kailin Kaylor at ESPN point out that Lloyd Howell Jr., the executive director of the NFLPA, has been working as a part-time consultant for the Carlyle Group since March of 2023, 3 months before being hired by the PA. Carlyle is among the league-approved firms clear to take minority stakes up to 10% in NFL franchises. In September of 2023, a senior NFLPA attorney reportedly asked him to step away from Carlyle to avoid the appearance of a conflict of interest. Howell ultimately decided to remain with the firm. Now, the Carlyle Group maintains that Howell had no involvement in any NFL-specific investment decisions, and strict information barriers were in place. I'm sure. The issue compounds the ongoing scrutiny of Howell's leadership with the PA. Kailin Kaylor, who was part of that story at ESPN, joins us now on the program. So I want to start with this, which is number one. How much work did you put in? And I'm just going to ask this very simply. At the end of the day, when you and Don Van Natta put this story out there, because I can see both sides of the argument of saying, hey, he just does some consulting work on the side. It has nothing to do with the NFL. How much did you get the appearance that this guy representing the players is compromised?
So, hi, Jared. First of all, we did a lot of work on this. Basically, since Pablo broke the full decision, which was about 2 weeks ago, we had hit the ground running trying to find out more, because our main question was like, well, why didn't the union want to publicize this information? Because the information in that collusion grievance, yes, they were not awarded damages, and you could chalk it up officially, it's a loss to the union. But there was a lot of details in there that are, if you want to use a coach term, a moral victory, right? Like, there was a lot of stuff in there that is ammunition for the PA that shows, text messages between owners, emails between the commissioner and the management council, encouraging teams to reduce guaranteed money in veteran contracts. So it was a lot of information that you would just logically think that the PA would want its membership to know about, and might want the general public to know about as well, because it can be, something to use in bargaining and negotiating, something to rally support of players, for example. And so we started kind of like looking into that aspect of it, is like, why for 6 months did none of us know what happened in this decision? And we did a lot of work on that, and it was really difficult because this is a topic that, nobody wants to talk about and nobody is authorized to talk about on the record. I mean, we couldn't even get a statement on the record from the league or the PA. We couldn't even get a statement from either party to say, oh, we're still talking to the other party, so we can't comment. Like, we didn't have any official statement from either side. So that kind of shows you like how much people did not want to talk about this and did not want information about this out there. And then to the second part of your question, to how much do we think Lloyd is compromised? I mean, I think that's subjective a little bit. I mean, you can see in the story that we wrote yesterday, I talked to Jim Quinn, who was a longtime outside counsel for the Players Union. For about 25 years, he represented the Players Union. So he worked with Gene Upshaw, former executive director, and he worked with Dee Smith, the executive director before Lloyd Howell. And he told me that as far as he knew, neither of those two, the two previous executive directors, were able to make outside income from another job. And the way he explained it was their main priority is representing the players. So why would they spend time in another industry doing literally anything else? And when I spoke to Quinn, he was I'll use the word outraged, because he gave us some pretty strong opinions and said it would be outrageous. An outrageous conflict of interest is what he said. So, just based off of his opinion, which is someone who's been around this world a long time and who's represented previous executive directors, I mean, he was shocked to learn that Howell is a part-time consultant for a private equity firm that has been approved to invest in NFL clubs, though they have not yet invested.
So when it comes to this with the NFLPA, when you talk to players, and I know some on the record said like, hey, we're trying to figure this out. We're not going to answer these questions or whatever. But behind the scenes in this, the sentiment that you got when talking to players that are represented by this union that did not know the scope of the, arbiters ruling on collusion until all of this came out, that maybe weren't aware of Lloyd Howell's other side gigs. What was the sentiment you got when talking to NFL players about the guy representing them against the league?
So I have two things to share here. So originally, before we reported our stories, I talked to one current player representative and one former player representative. But the former one had been a player representative when they elected Lloyd. And both of these players were, I'm not going to use the word angry, because they weren't necessarily angry. They were just confused as to why they had not known any of this information, or why none of the collusion grievance information was shared with them. So I'll use the word like confused and skeptical to explain like what they were feeling at the time. And both of them asked, we have a couple quotes in the first story from them. And, both of them asked questions like, once they learned what was in the decision after Pablo Torre leaked it, they were like, wait a second, why wouldn't we know this? Like, why wouldn't the union want us to know this? This is like pertinent and relevant to our jobs and our agents' jobs. So, and I had an agent on the record in there, Mike McCartney, who said the same thing. And Mike McCartney is the agent who negotiated the first fully guaranteed contract for a quarterback in Kirk Cousins. And McCartney basically said the same thing. He was like, this is relevant for negotiations. This would have been relevant information for players who have negotiated contracts in the 6 months since this decision was made, because the decision was made in January. And then the second thing I'll add is that as far as Lloyd's Carlisle Group role, one player did not remember knowing about it, but he was like, I can't say for sure. Like, I can't say that they didn't tell us about it. I just don't remember. And then the second player I talked to actually had a really different perspective on it. He was like, no, we knew about his role at Carlisle. We knew about his board work with GE. Lloyd sits on the board of, I believe, 3 different corporations, GE, Mantech, and Moody's. And this player basically reasoned it to say, we actually like that about him. It makes him different from previous union directors, because we want someone, or we wanted someone and continue to want someone who is more business oriented. Like this player was saying, they view the union, or his perspective, he views the union as a business, and they all want to maximize the amount of money they could make. So he views Lloyd as this person who's straddling the fence on the union role and working for a private equity firm that may have ownership in an NFL club someday. This player sort of views that actually not as a conflict of interest, but as an advantage to the players, because now they have someone who truly understands the business of football. And that was a really surprising take for me. And that's something I just learned yesterday. So that wasn't in our stories because it was from a conversation I just had yesterday. So yeah, that's how I would sum that up.
Kailin Kaylor with us, ESPN. She reporting on the latest with the NFLPA. I do wonder this. Is anything going to come of this? And I don't mean like, is Lloyd Howell going to get fired or anything like that? Because that you wouldn't know. But as far as the league and the players union are concerned, now we all know about this. We all know about the ruling. We all know technically the league won, but there are absolutely some points that the PA could parrot, through their own ways of going on shows and making comments and doing things like that. But is there going to be anything that affects the actual relationship between the league and the PA and really affects that relationship for football for us as fans going forward? Or is this kind of more like the corporate side of the NFL and the Players Association?
For fans, I'm not sure what the direct correlation is right now. I think if we got to a point where guaranteed contracts become a regular occurrence, that's obviously going to change the finances of every team. And then maybe fans are more interested to care about it at that point in time. But I think for right now, it's too early to say because the PA is filing an appeal. We learned that a couple of days ago. We reported that a couple of days ago. They are now appealing this grievances decision. So it will go to a panel of 3 judges, and that's the next step. So if those judges rule on the side of the PA, then there may be changes that come from this in the next CBA, I would think. There already is an anti-collusion chapter in the CBA, which is why the PA was able to launch this grievance in the first place, because they were basically suing to say that the league had broken that aspect of the CBA in the anti-collusion section. So, I guess we could see some changes in that aspect, and it would be a huge sort of moral victory as well for the PA if they were to win the appeal. But it's too early to say what will happen with that because the NFL has also decided to file a claim to try to recoup the legal fees from the Players Association, since the Players Association launched the grievance and lost the grievance. But it's very complicated because the NFL is going to have to convince the arbitrator that the PA didn't have reasonable basis or reasonable grounds to file the grievance in the first place in order to recoup the money. But Florio explained this and laid it out. Mike Florio laid this out really well on Pro Football Talk, and he said the league even saying they're filing that claim could be enough to get the union to revoke their appeal and not even go forward with the appeal, because if the union loses the appeal, they could then be on the hook for the $12 million that the league is trying to get them to pay them. So if you're still with me, it's very complicated, and it's too early to say if there are going to be any real changes from this or not.
So you're a football fan. As a fan, when you're doing this, what I love is just the juicy gossip of it. The actual, did they collude? Did they not collude? My definition of collusion, I don't know what my definition of collusion is this. If I'm Detroit and you're Green Bay and Johnny Joe is out there in free agency and I call you and I say, hey, I've offered $3 million. So if his agent comes to you and says that he's getting an offer of $5 million, he's lying because I haven't done that. That to me is collusion. The idea of hey, we don't want guaranteed contracts and we don't want the NBA or the NFL to become the NBA is not, in my opinion, collusion. I do wonder, do you think that the players are going to rally around this, or do you think they even care about it?
I think the players, based off of the players I've talked to, they were, there have been questions and concern over why it took the union 6 months to file an appeal. And we don't really have a satisfactory answer to that yet, other than the fact that they were in the confidentiality agreement with the NFL, which essentially served as sort of a pause on all further action. They agreed, okay, we're not going to publicize this decision. The two parties agreed that. And in the meantime, we're just going to hang out and wait, and nobody's going to do anything. But then someone leaked the decision. Obviously, we don't know who, but somebody leaked the decision, which broke that confidentiality agreement and caused the PA to then say they were going to file an appeal. So that pause is now over. So the players had a lot of questions about why did it take us so long, 6 months, to file an appeal on this. I think from what I've heard, the sentiment is that they wanted an appeal sooner. They wanted action to have taken place sooner. So I think that was something that they might have been rallying around. But, the reality is guaranteed contracts affects maybe 2% of the NFL player population. It is not something that the everyday player is top of mind worrying about. So I don't know that this issue is going to get to that point because it's just not the majority's concern.
Kailin Kaylor, ESPN. Is there going to be another shoe that falls here, or have you and Don Van Natta emptied the barrels on this?
Well, we're still making calls. I'll say this. Ever since our stories came out, I haven't really had a moment peace because I've been fielding a lot of phone calls. So,
you're just so popular. I see how it is.
Hopefully there'll be more reporting to share with you guys soon.
There you go. Kailin Kaylor, ESPN. Kailin, thank you so much for your time, as always.
Thanks, Jared.
Yep, Kailin Kaylor joining us on the program. Again, I like, this kind of gossip about, like this guy, he might be on the take with the NFL, and then it might be is it really going to affect anything? Probably not. Probably not. And here's why. Because, again, the NFL has set it up so they can pay you after 3, but they don't have to pay you until after 7. If you're a first-round pick, 6 if you're not. And that's hard for me to believe that that's ever going to change. 615-737-1025. Fireball Hot Take Friday continues. 1025, 106 of the game. Stillman and Company. Look, I understand when it comes to the union and the PA and the league and all that. I understand like it's not super sexy to talk about. I get it. And the idea of guaranteed contracts and collusion, and again, it's not going to affect the game, so why do we care? I get that. At the same time, if the NFL Players Association is stupid enough to elect a guy who is on the board or doing work for a venture capital firm or a private equity firm that would be available to buy an NFL team, then they're stupider than you think. Talking about the players themselves, they're dumber than you think. And that I do find to be at least a little fascinating. And if the guy is, skimming off the top, that's dirty. So I do find that of interest. Skylar says, who cares about the players not getting guaranteed money? We listen to this show to listen to you crap on the Titans. Keep it going, Jared. Skylar, I appreciate that. I just want everybody to know this show has not always been a crap on the Titans show. This show, I remember doing this show when the Titans used to be good. And I remember the conversations were not, boy, are the Titans the worst and most irrelevant team in the NFL, which are the conversations now. But the conversations used to be, are the Titans in the same class with Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, and Baltimore? Those were the discussions we used to have. Is Ryan Tannehill good enough to go on the road and win that game? Those were the conversations we used to. If the Titans win this week, are they Super Bowl contenders? Those used to be the discussions that we would have. Now, oftentimes, I would take the side of, not on purpose, but just because that's what I believed, I would take the side of, no, they're not Super Bowl contenders with Tannehill at quarterback, etc. But I did enjoy doing the show when they were good. One of my favorites, and I know I have a lot of favorites, going back to the old Jared and the GM days, but one of my favorites was before they played the Ravens in the divisional round playoff game in Baltimore, where they went in there and just stuck a foot up Lamar Jackson's ass. I remember doing the show at some random car dealership. I can't even remember which car dealership it is. And we did the show that day. And I remember I had watched Ravens tape, and I was like, all right, here's what I took away from watching the Ravens on tape. And it was a list of takeaways. And one of them was A.J. Brown and Corey Davis are not going to be able to get off the press against these corners for the Ravens. I believe at the time it was Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey, but I'm not sure exact, whatever. And Floyd got so mad, and he was like, if you can't get off the press, you don't belong in the NFL. And he got all mad about it. And I'm like, well, you can be mad all you want. I mean, it's not going to change anything. And luckily, they didn't need Corey Davis or A.J. Brown in that game because they hit a touchdown to Jonnu Smith. They hit a touchdown to Khalif Raymond. They ran the ball to Derrick Henry. I mean, that was fun. It's fun on the radio when the Titans are good. So when you're like, we listen to this show for you to crap on the Titans, I'll only crap on the Titans because the Titans deserve to be crapped on. When the Titans don't deserve to be crapped on, they won't get crapped on. It's like my old buddy that used to play Major League Baseball said when he was coming up to the minors, they had a saying, don't like it, play better. Don't like the food you eat in single A, you want to go to double A where you'll get fed better, play better. You don't like riding the bus at triple A, you want to fly private everywhere, play better. You'll be in the major leagues. That guy's got an $8 million contract and you don't, play better. That's how I feel about the Titans. I want them to be good. They got to play better. One texter says, you're right about Simmons, but I'm still not sure if your on-air personality is an actor or if you're just a fan that likes to play video games. Well, I don't play video games, so I'm definitely not that. What's funny about me in video games? The last time I actually played video games, and I'm not talking about picking up an old Mario and playing, Mario Kart 64 with some buddies. I'm talking about all right, let's go play some video games. It was during the COVID shutdowns. I bought a PlayStation 4 and I was like, you know what? I might as well because I can't go out, can't hang out, didn't have a girlfriend, didn't have a kid, didn't have a dog, didn't have anything. So I bought the baseball video game. And I played the baseball video game for like 2 months. And it was fun. And then they started playing real sports again, and the video games went away and they never came back. Now, when I was a kid, I used to play video games all the time. Madden, college football, MVP baseball, would later transition to MLB The Show. But then I grew up. And I think for me, when people that I went to college with started being in the video games, then it was really weird to me. I think I just kind of grew up. Not that those of you out there that play video games aren't grown up. Now, look, I'll play like an old Mario game. They go like old Mario 3. I'll play that now. But like actually like playing video games, that's not really me. That's not really my thing. Is that bad or is that good? I don't know. 615-737-1025. Chad Withrow joins us next from Outkick Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's Stillman and Company on 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, and it is a Fireball Hot Take Friday, and it is 5 o'clock, which means Chad Withrow joins us from Outkick. So, Chad, I see the ESPN top 10 list that come out where, again, these are not ESPN's opinions, but they compile the list. They talk to the coaches, executives, and scouts, and then they put together the top 10 list. And there are two things that stand out. As of right now, ESPN has done running back, defensive tackle, edge rusher, safety, and tight end. The Titans have one player inside the top 10 on any of those lists. It's Jeffrey Simmons. Not even any other player has been an honorable mention or even received a single vote. It is, in my opinion, telling me, foreshadowing for us that this may be the worst Titan season that we have seen in some time. And so I want to start with this, which is, you've covered the Titans, for a long time before you went to Outkick. You've lived here forever. Is this the least exciting or least excited people have been prior to a Titan season, or is it just me?
It's just you, because you've got short-term memory, because a year ago, the people were way less excited about the Titans. I mean, there was no excitement around Will Levis and around that Titans team. This team's got the number one pick at quarterback.
Oh, no,
So
you don't remember the summer of Let Rand Cook?
Oh, there was no excitement. I mean, I think that was very much a small group of people on the internet. There was no excitement going into last year. Look, there's very little excitement going into this year. But I'm just going short term here. At least you have the number one pick starting at quarterback. It can't get any worse, Jared, than picking number one overall. They just did that. Now, they could replicate that and do it again and be the worst team in the NFL for a second straight year. But even then, at least going into this season, you've got the anticipation of watching a number one overall pick at the quarterback position, try to figure it out and see if they're the franchise guy. So, yeah, there's not a lot of buzz around this Titans team, and rightfully so. I could also look around AFC South and not see a lot of reasons for excitement with the other teams in the division either. But the Titans are last on that list of teams, even in a bad division. But no, this isn't the least talked about or least exciting team the Titans have ever fielded. There have been some bad ones in the past. Last year was worse. Last year resulted in the number one pick. Last year had Will Levis, the first pick of the second round, starting at quarterback. This year's got the first overall pick as the quarterback. So I'm taking this season and the anticipation of it over last year.
I think you are totally misremembering the money they spent in the offseason and the fans that said Vrabel was the problem, let Rand cook. Brian Callahan's going to turn Will Levis into Joe Burrow because he did it in Cincinnati. I think you are totally misremembering that and how optimistic people were. I had somebody come up to me at a wedding in Toronto, and they were like, Jared, we're going to be better this year. And I looked at this guy. This was August of last year, and I had just come back from the Seahawk practices, and I'm like, this team's terrible. And he was like, no, you got to admit, they're better than they were last year. I'm like, you lost Derrick Henry. You don't get better. I think you completely misremember how suckered in people were that Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan were going to build around Joe Burrow 2.0.
I think if you want to listen to and pay attention to the Titans hype machine, then you could probably do that and get yourself suckered into thinking anything. I'm saying those with a brain that know ball were not excited about last year. And I'll pose this question to you, Jared. Is the NFL a quarterback league or a head coach league?
Well, it's definitely a quarterback league, but if you got a moron at head coach like the Bengals have, I do think it may hold you back a little bit.
And I'm not talking about, this is not a statement on Brian Callahan and his competence or anything. It's definitely a quarterback league. Last year, the starting quarterback going into the season was Will Levis. Now, even the most optimistic of Will Levis fans would not put the excitement around Will Levis or anticipation, especially after seeing him some of the year before, at the level of a number one overall pick, right? Like that's not even close. It's a quarterback's league. If you've got a chance at quarterback, you got a chance. And so Titans fans should be way more optimistic and excited about this season because they get to see the number one overall pick at quarterback, period. I mean, yeah, a year ago there was a coaching regime change and there were a lot of changes in free agency and Derrick Henry was gone, all that. But I'm telling you, if you know ball, you're way more at least excited about watching this quarterback than anything about last year's team.
Chad, I had a take earlier today. The top 10 tight ends came out. Brock Bowers is number 1. And we played the cut on draft night when Malik Neighbors went at 6 to the Giants. And I was sitting there on the draft show saying, take Brock Bowers. And obviously the Titans did not do that. They took J.C. Latham. Last year I ran a poll in which I asked, who would you trust to be a better general manager, Jared Stillman or Ran Carthon / Chad Brinker? I lost 51-49. I was shocked it was that close. I am convinced that I am a better general manager than Ran Carthon. And 2 things from this list make me think that. Obviously, the number 1 thing of Brock Bowers as the number 1 tight end in the league, Chig is terrible, and I think we can all agree with that. And number 2, Derrick Henry on the top 10 list went from 9th last year to 2nd this year because that terrible team that Mike Vrabel and Ran Carthon put together made Derrick Henry look bad. Derrick went to a sane organization and turned back into Derrick Henry. Am I talking out of my ass that I could have done a better job than Ran Carthon did the last 2 years?
I mean, you're likely talking out of your ass that you could have done a better overall job with all aspects of being a general manager. But if you posed the question and said, who would you rather have draft for the Titans in the first round, Jared Stillman or Ran Carthon? I would take you in a heartbeat. Based on that decision alone of drafting Brock Bowers, because I'd way rather have Brock Bowers, especially knowing what we know now with Cam Ward coming in at quarterback. If he had a weapon like Brock Bowers that was entering year 2, yeah, I would take that trade immediately. So, look, I can't sit here and say that, you're going to draft 5th and 6th rounders as well, and you're going to know the league as well, and you're going to get the bargain basement free agents and get the right fit for the team as well as Ran Carthon or someone that's been around it for a while. But if you ask me right now, gun to my head, hey, Chad, who do you want taken in the first round? Who do you want picking for your team? Stillman or Ran? I'd say let Jared cook and not the other way around.
Okay, gun to your head. Who would you rather have be the general manager for your team, Jared Stillman or Ran Carthon?
Jared Stillman. I mean, I can't say, look, we know that Ran Carthon was bad, right? Right. It's a tough premise to a question because it's like, hey, knowing what you know now, like, would you rather Derek Dooley coach your college team or this guy that you don't know much about? Well, I know Derek Dooley was really bad. He was entertaining, and I love the guy, and he's funny, but he was bad as a head coach at Tennessee. But so the opportunity of the other person possibly doing a better job than what was really bad is always way too enticing. So, yeah, based on a faulty premise, I'd rather you be the quarterback – or, sorry, not quarterback. I'd rather you be the general manager of the Titans as opposed to Ran Carthon.
So this brings me to the other thing that I guess I can't totally get over. This top 10 list is more of a reflection to me about how bad the last couple of years have been for the Titans. And yet, Chad Brinker is in charge of the Titans. And Chad Brinker was here in a very high position for those 2 years where they didn't draft Brock Bowers. And Chad Brinker was here for those 2 years where they put all their chips in the middle on Will Levis and they hired Brian Callahan. And like Chad Brinker was promoted and Chad Brinker was, and yet it's as if we're supposed to believe that the Titans going forward now have their heads removed from their asses. Although some of the moves they have made are very head out of ass moves that I'm not used to from the Titans. But I have a hard time understanding how is Chad Brinker not culpable for anything that happened while he was here as assistant GM or the president of football operations.
So there's a great line in the movie Office Space. I love to quote movies. Hilarious movie. Mike Judge wrote, directed it, where the 2 Bobs come in as consultants for the company. That's the focus of the movie. And they're asking one of the employees, they're trying to get down to what exactly they do at the job. And, they say, what is it you'd say you do here? They're asking over and over, and the employee's trying to explain all these different things, but really it's a job that's probably not needed. I really think that Chad Brinker is sort of that person. And we come across these people all the time. Jared, you've worked in this business long enough. You've been around, big business, corporations, everything else. There are people that work for these big companies that make a ton of money that I'm convinced their sole purpose is to not get in trouble with their boss. Like everything they do is to just be sort of invisible while also seeming helpful, while not trying to get pointed out for being the problem in any situation. I've seen this at the corporate level. I've seen it at the local level. I've seen it everywhere that I've been. The NFL is no different. I feel like Chad Brinker is a guy who sounds smart when talking about football. I think he's a guy who's impressed Amy Adams Strunk, the owner. I think he's a guy who does a good job of sort of levitating back and forth between different areas of the team, all while avoiding any type of blame for anything bad that happens. It's always going to be somebody else's fault. There's a skill to that. There's an art to it. I've always been someone that likes to do things or get things done, so I'm probably not perfect in that respect. But those who can do that and avoid any blame end up making a lot of money and working for many years. Chad Brinker's that person. Don't really know what he does exactly. Don't really know what level of responsibility he holds for the failures. And because I don't know, he's been pretty smart in handling his career because he has stayed out of the crosshairs of Amy Adams Strunk. And in doing so, he's kept his job through some really miserable times for this team.
I will tell you, I think that is a trend in the Titans organization. I don't think he's the only one doing that. Like, I don't think Brinker's the only guy who's got an executive level title and an executive level salary, and he's just there to be there, to act important, and to make the money and make as much of it as you can, as long as you can, because there will be a day where Amy changes her mind and you're fired. But for right now, just get what you can get. And I don't think he's the only one there doing that.
Yeah, I know what you do. You host this show, right?
Sure.
I know Connor's in today, but I know that David Reed produces this show. I know that people that come in and clean the building at night, I know what they're doing. They're cleaning the building. There are so many people at every major corporation that you look at, and it's like, what is it exactly that you do? Other than you're in on meetings or you hold them, and then you're kind of being helpful here and there, but also not really. You can be an obstacle at times. That's always kind of driven me crazy at every step along the way. But it's a skill to it. There are people who are artful about it, and they're really good at it, and they somehow avoid any blame at all times. They kind of go with the company line. They do the company speak. And then in doing so, they don't get in trouble with the owner or the boss or whoever it is, and they stay employed for a long time. So, hey, more power to them.
Chad Withrow with us from Outkick here on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. The hot seat awaits next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Fireball Hot Take Friday. Chad Withrow with us as he always is. Chad, do you have a thought, or do you want to go to the hot seat?
Let's get to it.
Number one, Deion Sanders has opined at the Big 12 Media Days that college football needs a salary cap, saying, quote, look at the college football playoff, and you will see that it goes hand in hand with guys and the money they're making. That being said, one, do you think Deion is right? We need a salary cap. And two, do you think Deion is being intellectually honest with his desire for a salary cap? Do you think it was something that when he was a player he wanted? What do we make of Deion's intentions for the salary cap?
Yeah, look, I think he's speaking as Deion Sanders, head coach of Colorado football, when he says that, absolutely, not as a player, and that he's doing what's best and saying what's best for him and his team. And, yeah, there needs to be a salary cap. If we want any level of fairness, they need to cap what schools can give the players, and then the schools can figure out how they want to allocate the money and pay the football players and pay the basketball players and do all that. Now, it's not going to stop the bigger brands that make more money from being able to entice recruits and transfers over with the promise of more advertising money, NIL money, endorsement money on top of what they're going to make from the school. Now, if you're a Colorado, the advantage to that could be, hey, you're a star wide receiver. If you go to Alabama, let's say you're one of 5 star wide receivers. We can get you more money in advertising because you're going to be the wide receiver at Colorado. You're going to be the most marketable player on our team. So we can get you more endorsement money with our NIL collective on top of what we're going to pay you underneath the salary cap. So there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat with that one. But, yeah, there needs to be a salary cap.
Okay, number two. How much belly aching will there be at SEC Media Days this upcoming week about player-related freedoms such as NIL and the transfer portal, and how much belly aching should there actually be?
I mean, they're going to bellyache about no rules in play. It's going to be a lot of hedging. Coaches are going to say, you know, I'm all for the players getting money, but, hey, I'm all for the players having some power here, but here are the bad things that are going on. And they're right. They're not wrong about it at all. There's got to be regulation. There needs to be 2 or 3 year commitments. It shouldn't be a year-to-year thing. Players should not be allowed to bounce from one school to the next to get more and more money after 1 year at a place. So, no, there needs to be rules. The coaches are going to be right about it. And I think they're going to hedge by saying, you know, I'm all for the players, but here's what I really think. We're going to hear a lot of it next week.
Number three, how will Paul Finebomb's love of Arch Manning look in December of this year? Will he be proven a genius, or will he look like somebody who bought the hype?
Look, I don't think that they're going to win the national title. And to me, that's the expectation for Texas. I think they're Ohio State of a year ago. I really do. I think that they're the team that you look at and you say, with this roster, with this quarterback, it's either national championship or bust. That was the expectation for Ryan Day going into last year, and he accomplished it. So anything short of a national title, I think, is a disappointment. I also think you're going to have Arch for the next 2 years. I don't think he's leaving early. So it's going to be to be continued after this year.
Number four, the Atlanta Braves are hosting the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. However, in the standings, this is the worst that they have been since 2017, as they sit 13 games and a half out and are 12 games under 500. Where do the Atlanta Braves go from here?
They need to trade some of their players. I mean, it's time to adjust a little bit here. Like we can continue saying, oh, it's just a bad year. And it's just, this team is awful. I mean, they're really bad. And I know that their run differential is not terrible based on their record and everything else. And they have had some injury problems, but I think it's time to trade away whoever they can trade away to get younger, better assets. I think you do it. Outside of Acuna, who I don't want them to trade, I don't want them to trade Austin Riley. I think Marcell Ozuna, if you can get anything for him, do it. I think Matt Olson, who I like, but if you can get something for him, do it right now. Now is the time to act. I don't know that Alex Anthopoulos is going to do it, but this team is bad. That's for sure.
By the way, I've seen some of these things about Acuna being traded, and I'm like, as a fan, if they traded him and they didn't get the world in return, that may be like burning a bridge right there. That now I'm always going to love the Braves, but I'd have a hard time getting over that. It would feel very Luka Doncic-esque.
Yeah, unless, like you said, they got, okay, these are the 5 players that are the core of the next Braves dynasty. When you're
Ken
done
Griffey
with the trade,
III and that group.
exactly. Like, here's the guy who throws 102 miles. I'm watching Mason Miller for the A's last night throw 104 miles per hour in relief, and I'm like, okay, you got 3 of these guys, and you got 2 power-hitting outfielders. Unless it's that, yeah, no thanks.
What is your level of caring on the NFLPA and the NFL concealed collusion findings and the news story that the executive director of the NFLPA does side work for a venture capital firm that may buy interest in NFL teams?
So I think all these things are true. The NFLPA is the weakest in all of sports. The NFL is also the most popular sport in America. So everything they're doing is right for the fans. The fans love it. They have the perfect system set up. The owners in the league have more power. I think when the owners and leagues have more power, it's typically better for the fans. When the players take over all the control and power, it weakens the enjoyability of the fan. We're seeing it in college sports right now. Fan interest is going to go down if this continues. NBA, too much control for the players. Another good example of that as interest wanes. The NFL's got it figured out. The owners have it figured out. I don't want anything to change, while also acknowledging quarterbacks are the ones who should get guaranteed money. Of all the sports, those are the guys who should get it, but their NFLPA is weak, and they're not going to demand it. They're not going to band together, so they're not going to get it. They're going to get paid a ton of money. Everybody's going to get rich in the process, but it's not what's best for the player. And, Jared, I think that's actually a good thing for the fans.
You know, Rob Manfred is trying to turn the baseball union on itself. And I'm like, man, if they had the dirt that's on this executive director of the PA for football, he'd be able to do it. Unfortunately, not sure it's there. Speaking of quarterbacks, go ahead.
Juan Soto, quickly. Juan Soto makes $765 million guaranteed in his contract. He's complaining about not getting an all-star game bonus. Like, that's the problem with Major League Baseball also, that you don't have as often in the NFL because nothing is really guaranteed in the NFL.
Mm-hmm. That is true. Speaking of the NFL and the quarterback position, the Netflix series Quarterback has returned for a second season. Kirk Cousins, Joe Burrow featured in this one. I forget who the third guy is. But my question for you is, what is your interest level in this year's edition of Quarterback? Have you watched it? Will you watch it? And what do you think of the series going forward?
So Jared Goff is the third quarterback.
Goff,
this year.
that's it.
I'm an episode and a half in. And every time I want to be critical of these shows and, oh, we've seen it all and we've done this. And then I turn it on and start watching. I'm like, it's pretty good. I'm really enjoying this show. And that's the way I feel about it now. It's really funny. It's compelling at times. It's funny. Kirk Cousins is like the type of guy that just makes people want to be a better person, I think, the way he is about everything. He's just one of those type of dudes. I love watching him on this season also. He's the only repeat from season 1. It's really good. I mean, Joe Burrow's pretty much exactly the way I expected him to be. A little bit odd, but also very serious and very much an alpha quarterback. Jared Goff is very likable in it. Again, I'm only an episode and a half in, but I'm loving Quarterback season 2 so far.
Nashville SC is in second place in the MLS with 41 points behind FC Cincinnati, who has 42. What level of interest do you have in Nashville SC? And how big of a deal would it be if Nashville SC were to, in fact, win the MLS Cup?
It'd be a huge deal. Now, if they won the MLS, here's what's so confusing to me about soccer at all levels, Jared. A buddy of mine, a guy who produces our show, is a huge Nashville SC fan. He's talking constantly about this like mid-season tournament they're in that they continue not to lose in. And he's like, if they win, it's the first ever championship for a pro sports team in Tennessee, a major pro sports team. I'm like, well, wait a minute. So you're talking about winning the MLS? No. Winning whatever this other tournament is they're in. I'm like, you can't do both. The ultimate goal, there has to be one main goal. And the one main goal in a pro sports league is to win your league. It's to win the NBA Finals. It's to win the Super Bowl. It's to win the World Series. It's to win the Stanley Cup. So what is the Stanley Cup of the MLS? It's the MLS championship, right?
Right,
At the end
MLS
of
Cup.
the season. Yeah, if they win the MLS Cup, it's a huge deal. but I don't want to hear as much about. That's cool that they might win this other tournament, but you can't have both. You got to pick one. Like, one's the ultimate goal. I'm not going to award them the only pro sports team in Tennessee to win a major championship because they won the second biggest trophy in sport.
Yeah, I mean, if you have to explain to me what it is you're playing for, then I'm not sure it matters that much.
Thank you. I completely agree. Like, that we have to get more clear cut. This is what you play for in the MLS. Because I've heard, oh, well, maybe this would actually, depending on how your season's going, one is maybe more important than the other. I'm like, no, that's very convenient. So you can be having a terrible, it's like the NBA in-season tournament. That's like somebody arguing that the first major championship for a team in a market is the in-season NBA tournament. I don't understand it.
I'm trying to figure out when the MLS Cup would be. The problem with the MLS Cup is I believe the MLS playoffs are in like November. And I'm sorry, but we're going to be paying attention to football then.
Yeah.
Like that's a problem the WNBA has with their playoffs. We're going to be paying attention to football, which takes me to my last one, which is, what do you make of Angel Reese on the cover of the new women's basketball video game?
I mean, was Caitlin Clark unavailable? I don't understand it. Caitlin Clark is the driving force of women's basketball. It's hands down, no brainer. She's what draws interest. So I don't understand, other than just someone making a choice based on what they think people will approve of more than others. I don't know. I mean, look, Angel Reese versus Caitlin Clark is a nice rivalry that started back in college. And Angel Reese certainly is a part of Caitlin Clark's celebrity, but she's not the biggest part. The reason the WNBA has exploded, the reason that women's basketball to an extent has gotten a lot more popular, is Caitlin Clark, hands down. So if you're going to make a video game and put someone on the cover, it needs to be Caitlin Clark.
Here's my thing on the Angel Reese front. You know, everybody's, you know, all the old hats in the WNBA and Angel Reese and all those, they point the finger at Caitlin Clark like, she doesn't deserve all this attention she gets. The person who gets the attention they don't deserve is Angel Reese.
Yes.
And she only
Totally
gets
agree.
attention because of Caitlin Clark.
But no one says a word about that.
No, you're not allowed
Because
to.
most everyone saying that agrees with, you know, everything Angel Reese says, and for whatever reason doesn't like. It comes down to this. Like, we live in a me good, you bad society. I say this all the time. So whatever side you pretend to be on or you think you're on, you're just not going to listen to anybody else. It's me good, you bad. You bad, me good. That's the WNBA in a nutshell.
Do you
Angel
think that,
Reese
like,
is
Carl
on one
Weathers
side and Caitlin Clark's supporters on another? They don't hate Caitlin Clark. They hate what Caitlin Clark represents. That's what people hate.
Do you think when Carl Weathers was still alive that, like, he and his family looked at it and they were like, man, people think that movie is about Sylvester Stallone and Rocky, but it's really not. I mean, it's really about me.
Funny. That would be a great take. You know, it proved itself years later with the Creed movies that the real focal point of those films were Apollo Creed. And that's why we had to further explore that. I love
Happy
Rocky
Gilmore
movies.
2 comes out and Christopher McDonald's like, the real hero of the movie is me.
Well, there's apparently Chubbs Peterson's son is in the Happy Gilmore sequel, so they're also paying attention to another Carl Weathers character. But yeah, I think people they act like they're confused about the reason for the popularity, but deep down, everyone knows it's Caitlin Clark.
By the way, let me just say this. I am anticipating that Happy Gilmore 2 will absolutely freaking suck, but I'm okay with it if it does.
I think that it's going to be so bloated with cameos that there's going to be no coherent plot, right? Like, the first Happy Gilmore movie was so funny because it was one of the original funny Adam Sandler movies, but it had a plot about him trying to make enough money to save his grandmother's house and then breaking into the PGA. I just think this one's just going to be all over the place because there's so many cameos of celebrities throughout this thing.
Yeah, that's what they did with Coming to America 2, and that movie sucked. So I'm anticipating that's going to be the same way with Happy Gilmore 2. Chad Withrow from Outkick. Great stuff. We'll talk soon.
All right. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Yep, Chad Withrow on our program. 615-737-1025. Let's get to your phones. A lot of people want to weigh in on the Nashville SC commentary. We'll do that next. Stillman & Company, 1025. Want to see the game? Stillman and Company. So let me be completely honest with everybody out there. I haven't been keeping up with Nashville SC. I see they've been winning some games, and the Nashville SC fans are like, oh, Nashville SC. And look, that's great. You root for what you want to root for. That's great. But I just don't think it's that big of a deal. And I know the rest of the teams in town suck, and so it's nice that Nashville SC doesn't suck. I get all of that. But as far as doing this job is concerned, I'm not sure that I necessarily have to care about Nashville SC. Now, when Nashville SC was fighting with then Metro Council member at large John Cooper before he became mayor to get the stadium built, I was firmly on Nashville SC's side because the way I looked at it was I thought, hey, this can close the hole in the sports calendar. You know, we've got football and we've got hockey, and then we've got kind of this period here until football. So let's get a little something. So let's get a soccer team. And I was all for it. And then we got the soccer team. And it's not that I don't care. It's just that it doesn't move the needle enough. And then they put the games on Apple TV. So now people have to subscribe. And it's hard enough when Predators fans can't watch the games on TV. It's hard enough. But with this, you don't know. And it's at times, in my experience, just dealing with Nashville SC at times in the past, it's been kind of a mom and pop shop over there and not, you know, a big time sports thing. So, you know, hey, if you want to root for it, knock yourself out. Nick Frazier, he loves Nashville SC. I think when I was on vacation, somebody tweeted me and was like, Jared, will you please dedicate time to Nashville SC? And it's like, no. Like they have to, you know, there has to be enough interest there. And the way to do that is to play messy or to have one of the players grow an arm out of his ass, call it a leg, and kick the ball with it. I mean, that's what I got for you. So as far as the soccer's concerned, you know, that's kind of how I feel about it. I wish them nothing but the best of luck. I hope they do well. You know, for you people that love it, I'm happy you love it. It hasn't become mainstream enough yet for me to where I feel like I have to care. And that's how it kind of works is what we talk about on the air. It's not what I want to talk about. It's what you want to talk about. And then I just give you my opinion about the things that you all care about. So to your phones, after Chad and I talked about Nashville SC, and again, I mean this with no disrespect to Nashville SC. I'm just telling you what I think. Matthew from Jolton says, I couldn't tell you more than 3 soccer players in the world. The only time I've ever considered going to a Nashville SC game was when Messi was in town, and that's because it would be like seeing Tom Brady or Michael Jordan. I don't disagree with that. Dylan in Antioch says, Chad is spot on about Nashville SC. Too many tournaments in soccer in general. Again, this is how I feel. If you have to tell me what you're playing for, then I don't care. Like somebody, I think in the YouTube chat, compared whatever it is Nashville SC's playing for to the President's Trophy. And I'm like, but the President's Trophy, the only reason I care about the President's Trophy when it comes to the Predators is because I thought home ice mattered. And if you win the President's Trophy, you get home ice in every series, including the Stanley Cup final. So that's where it matters. The idea of, you know, we won the President's Trophy, that doesn't matter to me. Best record during the regular season only matters to me when it comes to the playoffs. And when it comes to hockey, you don't have to tell me what we're playing for. We're playing for the Stanley Cup. Granted, I did get into the Four Nations, and that was kind of manufactured. Not my interest in it, but the tournament itself was kind of manufactured, but I did get into that. Joey from Bellevue says, Nashville SC is in the U.S. Open Cup. That is the trophy they can still win. They are in the semifinals. Every league in Europe has a separate cup tournament within the country that involves teams in lower divisions that have a chance to win a trophy. Nashville SC plays Messi tomorrow. Do they play Messi tomorrow at home? Or is it only Messi? Is it only that they play Messi on the road tomorrow? I'm guessing they play Messi on the road. Because if they were playing Messi at home, I'm sure that would probably cross my radar. I mean, we did talk about Messi when Messi came here a couple of years ago, and that was a big deal because, once again, if you're important enough to get talked about, then we'll talk about it. It's just, I don't think it's gotten there with Nashville SC. I kind of view Nashville SC, and I mean this with all due respect to the Sounds. I love the Sounds, and I think the Sounds like me. But it's like when we talk about pro sports, and if somebody says Nashville needs a pro baseball team, I bet people at the Sounds get pissed off because they probably hear that and say, wait a minute, just because we're AAA doesn't mean we're not pro baseball. And technically they're right. But when somebody says pro baseball, you know what they mean. They mean Major League Baseball. When it comes to Nashville SC, yes, it's Major League Soccer, but it kind of seems minor leaguish to me. Like, not as important to me as the NBA. Do you know what I mean? I always think it's funny in football when they say world champions because, who else is playing football other than America? But in the other sports, baseball, basketball, you are world champions. You're not world champions in soccer. Chad says that if Nashville SC gets to the MLS Cup, that would be a big deal. The problem with that is that's going to be in November or December, and we're all in the football mode at that point. Like, what do you care about more? The SEC championship game or Nashville SC in the MLS Cup? It's going to be hard for me to pick Nashville SC. 615-737-1025. Speaking of things people don't care about, I almost never talk about my personal life in terms of like, I went on vacation and this was my vacation and what it was like. But I do have some advice that I'd like to give. And we'll do that next on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's Stillman and Company on 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, I don't really talk about, what my, this is what I did yesterday because I just don't think that many people care. I think sports radio hosts, some of it is built out of insecurity. Some of it is built out of some weird inflated sense of self-interest, but they talk about their personal lives. And again, I'm not talking about my son or whatever, but I'm talking about like the day-to-day of just shooting the breeze. Oh, man, I had such a hard time when my connection nobody cares. But I do want to tell this story from this week because I think it can help some of you out for the rest of the summer. I don't know how many more vacations people have planned. I don't know if people are done with their vacations or just whatever. But this week, we were in Singer Island, Florida. It's outside of Palm Beach. My grandmother lives in North Palm. She's 93 years old. She's the one that I would always talk about when we would talk about the regional sports networks. And I would discuss how Comcast had probably made $30,000 off my grandmother to not watch the Miami Marlins, Miami Heat, or Florida Panthers for 30 years, but that she was paying, $10, $12 a month for forever with Comcast. And that's how these sports teams made their money for years. And that money's gone away. So we were in Florida. And we stayed at a great resort. It wasn't a hotel. It was like a home resort kind of, but it was great. And the pool was great. The beach was great. All of it was great. Problem was, I don't think I drank enough water. And it was hot. The humidity was up there. And I spent a lot of the day at the pool, spent a lot of the day at the beach. My parents, they were in town. They would stay about a mile away. So we were walking to and from their place a bunch. And by about the second or third day, I was having a hard time getting out of bed. And I was starting to get these like flu-like symptoms. And so I looked it up. It was dehydration. And so for the last couple of days while I was there, I was just chugging Pedialyte and had headaches and all kinds of stuff. So let this just be a recommendation for everybody out there that when you're on vacation in the sun and it is hot and it's going to be hot here the rest of the summer, do not try to be Johnny Tough Guy. Make sure I used to take boxing classes. And one of the instructors at the end of the boxing class would always say, be sure to eat that healthy food and drink that healthy water. Well, I have learned the hard way because at 35 years old, I'm not 28 anymore. And I don't know if it's because, there's more going on with having a kid and everything else. I couldn't tell you. But this was the first time. And I've been going to Singer Island, Florida for forever. And this is the first time that I genuinely got so dehydrated that I was like, no, I can't drink a Gatorade. I can't drink like a Propel. I got to go to Walgreens and buy Pedialyte because I'm not. And it wasn't like I don't, again, it's Fireball Hot Take Friday and I love Fireball. I don't drink a lot. So it wasn't that. I just spent too much time in the sun, didn't drink enough water. So let that be just my advice for everybody else. That's it for us. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll see everybody Monday at 2 right here on the program. Connor Newt, great job.
Thank you,
Stillman
sir.
and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.